The interview that could save his daughter's future was in 15 minutes, but Daniel Hayes was about to throw it all away for a stranger. As the speeding truck barreled toward the woman frozen in the intersection, time slowed to a heartbeat. One choice: his career or her life. He didn't hesitate. What Daniel didn't know was that the woman he'd just saved was Clara Donovan, CEO of the very company he was desperate to join. Welcome to a story where losing everything becomes the only way to gain what truly matters. I'm curious, what city are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below how far this story has traveled. The alarm hadn't gone off. Daniel Hayes jolted awake to sunlight streaming through the threadbare curtains of his cramped apartment, his heart immediately hammering against his ribs. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed 7:47 a.m. in accusatory red numbers. His interview at Donovan Technologies was at 9:00 a.m. sharp, 45 minutes away in downtown traffic. "No, no, no," he muttered, throwing off the covers and nearly tripping over yesterday's work clothes. The power must have flickered during the night, resetting the alarm he'd triple-checked before bed. Of all the days for the universe to conspire against him, it had to be today. "Daddy." A small voice drifted from the doorway. Lily stood there in her faded princess pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her dark hair a tangle of knots that matched his own bedhead. "Morning, sweetheart," Daniel said, forcing his voice to remain calm as he yanked a clean shirt from the closet. The only clean shirt he realized with a sinking feeling. The laundromat would have to wait another week. "Why don't you go pour yourself some cereal? I'll be right there." "Is today the big day?" she asked, her 7-year-old face brightening with the kind of hope that made his chest ache. "The job that means we can stay." Daniel paused, his fingers fumbling with the buttons. She knew too much for someone her age, understood too well what eviction notices meant, why they ate cereal for dinner 3 nights a week, why her backpack was held together with duct tape while her classmates carried designer bags. "Yeah, baby, today's the big day." "You're going to get it," she said with the absolute certainty only children could muster. "You're the smartest daddy in the whole world." He crossed the room in 2 strides and kissed the top of her head, breathing in the sweet scent of her strawberry shampoo, the cheap kind, but she never complained. "From your mouth to God's ears, kiddo. Now go eat. Mrs. Chen will be here in 20 minutes to walk you to school." As Lily padded toward the kitchen, Daniel returned to his frantic preparation. The suit jacket he'd saved for 3 months to buy hung on the back of the bedroom door, still in its dry cleaning bag. It was nothing fancy, just a basic navy blazer from a discount store, but it was pressed and professional. It had to be enough. He showered in record time, the lukewarm water a reminder that the building's boiler was on its last legs. As he shaved, he caught his reflection in the spotted mirror. 32 years old, but the last 2 years since Margaret's death had aged him a decade. The grief had carved itself into the lines around his eyes, the perpetual shadow of exhaustion that no amount of sleep could erase. "You can do this," he told his reflection. "For Lily." The resume copies were already in his briefcase, printed at the library because their printer had died months ago. His references were solid. His former supervisor at the warehouse had written him a glowing recommendation before the company went under. His night school degree in logistics management might not be from a prestigious university, but his grades were impeccable. He'd studied at the kitchen table after Lily went to bed, surviving on coffee and determination. "Daddy, Mrs. Chen is here," Lily called from the living room. Daniel grabbed his briefcase and hurried out. Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor, stood in the doorway wearing her usual floral housecoat and kind smile. She'd been their lifeline since Margaret died, never accepting a penny for watching Lily, always claiming she enjoyed the company. "You look very handsome, Mr. Daniel," she said, her English heavily accented but warm. "Today will be a good day." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I should be back by noon." He knelt in front of Lily, straightening her school uniform, a hand-me-down from Mrs. Chen's granddaughter, but clean and carefully mended. "Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay? And remember after school." "I know, Daddy. Go to Mrs. Chen's apartment, not ours. Do my homework. Wait for you." She wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Don't be nervous. You're going to be amazing." The lump in his throat made it hard to speak. "I love you to the moon and back, to the stars and beyond." She completed their ritual, then whispered in his ear, "Mommy would be proud of you." Daniel held her a moment longer than necessary, then stood quickly before she could see the moisture in his eyes. With a final nod to Mrs. Chen, he headed for the door. The morning air hit him like a slap unseasonably cold for October. His breath formed small clouds as he jogged toward the bus stop, checking his watch obsessively. 8:02 a.m. If the bus came on time, if traffic cooperated, if the universe decided to grant him just one small mercy, he might make it. The bus stop was crowded with the usual morning commuters, nurses, heading to the hospital, retail workers clutching coffee cups like lifelines, students with backpacks heavier than Lily. Daniel shifted from foot to foot, his anxiety ratcheting up with each passing minute. 8:08 a.m. No bus. He pulled out his phone, checking the transit app. Next bus, 8:15 a.m. His heart sank. That would get him downtown at 8:50 at the absolute earliest, leaving 10 minutes to navigate the Donovan Technologies building and find the right floor. It would be cutting it dangerously close. "Come on," he whispered to the empty street. "Please." When the bus finally arrived at 8:17, it was already packed. Daniel squeezed in, holding his briefcase against his chest to avoid hitting other passengers. The man next to him reeked of cigarette smoke, making his empty stomach churn. He'd skipped breakfast, too nervous to eat, and wanting to save the last of the milk for Lily's cereal. The bus lurched into motion, and Daniel closed his eyes, mentally rehearsing his interview answers. Why do you want to work for Donovan Technologies? Because it wasn't just a job, it was stability, health insurance, the chance to give Lily the life she deserved. What are your greatest strengths? Determination, attention to detail, the ability to find efficient solutions with limited resources, skills honed by 2 years of single parenthood on a shoestring budget. His phone buzzed. A text from his former coworker, Jake. Heard through the grapevine that Donovan Tech has 200 applicants for that position. Don't want to discourage you, man, but be prepared. 200 applicants for one logistics coordinator position. Daniel's confidence wavered, but he pushed the doubt aside. He couldn't afford doubt. Lily was counting on him. The bus made its way through the city, stopping at every red light as if conspiring to test his patience. 8:32 a.m. They were only halfway downtown. Daniel's leg bounced nervously, earning him annoyed looks from nearby passengers. At 8:41, they hit gridlock. Complete standstill. "Ladies and gentlemen," the bus driver announced over the intercom, "looks like there's an accident up ahead. We're going to be here a while." Daniel's stomach dropped. He pushed his way to the front of the bus. "How long is a while?" The driver shrugged. "Could be 5 minutes, could be 20. No way to know." 20 minutes would make him late. Unacceptably late. The kind of late that would eliminate him from consideration before he even had a chance to prove himself. "I need to get off," Daniel said. "Can't open the doors in traffic, sir. Safety regulations." Daniel looked out the window. They were stuck on the Riverside Bridge cars, packed bumper to bumper in all lanes. The Donovan Technologies building was visible in the distance, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a beacon. So close, yet impossibly far. 8:44 a.m. He made a decision that would have horrified him under normal circumstances. "I'm sorry, but this is an emergency." Daniel pushed open the emergency exit at the back of the bus, ignoring the driver's shouts and the alarm that began blaring. He jumped down onto the bridge, his dress shoes hitting the asphalt hard enough to jar his knees. "Hey, you can't do that," someone yelled, but Daniel was already running. He wove between the stopped cars, his briefcase banging against his leg with each stride. Drivers stared at him through their windows, some amused, others annoyed. A few honked their horns, though, whether in encouragement or frustration he couldn't tell. His lungs burned in the cold air, his cheap dress shoes offering no support for running. A quarter mile. That's all that separated him from the interview that could change everything. He could make it. He had to make it. That's when he heard the scream. Daniel skidded to a stop, his head whipping toward the sound. Ahead where the bridge met the downtown streets, there was movement, chaotic wrong. People were running, pointing their faces masks of horror. His legs moved before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. A woman stood frozen in the intersection just beyond the bridge, her car door open behind her. She was staring at something in her hands, a phone, maybe completely oblivious to the delivery truck barreling toward her at full speed. The driver was looking down, probably at his own phone, equally unaware of the disaster about to unfold. Time slowed to a crawl. Daniel's mind calculated distances and speeds with the same precision he'd once used to optimize warehouse routes. The truck was 15 seconds away. The woman was 30 feet from him. The math was simple and terrible. He could save her, but it would cost him everything. 8:47 a.m. His interview was in 13 minutes. Lily's face flashed through his mind. Not as she was this morning, full of hope, but as she'd been the day they'd received the last eviction notice. The quiet acceptance in her eyes, the way she'd asked if they'd have to leave her school too, if she'd have to say goodbye to her friends. The way she'd said it was okay, that as long as they were together, she didn't need anything else. But she did need more. She deserved more. The truck was 10 seconds away. Daniel dropped his briefcase and ran. Not toward the Donovan Technologies building, not toward the interview that could save them, but toward the woman who stood frozen in death's path, her expensive suit and designer heels a stark contrast to his discount store blazer and scuffed shoes. "Move!" he screamed, but she didn't hear him or couldn't process it or was too shocked to respond. 7 seconds. His father had been a high school football coach before the factory job that slowly killed him. Daniel had spent countless afternoons watching practice, absorbing lessons about leverage and momentum and the proper way to tackle. He'd never made the team too small, too slow, but the knowledge remained. 5 seconds. The truck driver finally looked up, his eyes widening in horror. The squeal of brakes split the air, but physics was unforgiving. 40 tons of steel and cargo couldn't stop in time. 3 seconds. Daniel hit the woman at full speed, wrapping his arms around her waist and driving forward with every ounce of strength in his legs. They flew sideways, her phone clattering across the asphalt, her surprised gasp hot against his ear. The world became a blur of motion and noise, the truck's horn blaring tires screaming against pavement, the collective scream of witnesses. They hit the ground hard, Daniel taking the brunt of the impact on his shoulder and hip. Pain exploded through his body as they rolled asphalt, tearing through his suit jacket like paper. The truck roared past, so close he felt the wind of its passage, smelled the hot rubber and diesel exhaust. Then sudden stillness. Daniel lay on his back, his chest heaving, his body a symphony of pain. The woman was on top of him, her face inches from his, her eyes wide with shock and dawning realization. She was beautiful in that polished way that spoke of money and power. Sharp cheekbones, perfectly styled auburn hair, now wild from their tumble green eyes that seemed to see straight through him. You saved me," she whispered. Daniel managed a weak nod, then gently pushed her off him. He needed to get up, needed to run. 8:49 a.m. If he sprinted, if he ignored the stabbing pain in his ribs and the blood seeping through his torn pants. Maybe wait! The woman grabbed his arm as he struggled to his feet. "You're hurt. You need an ambulance." "I'm fine." He pulled free, looking desperately toward the Donovan Technologies building. "I have to go." "Are you insane? You were just hit by, well, we were almost hit by a truck. You need medical attention." "I need that job." He said more to himself than to her and started limping toward his briefcase, which lay scattered across the intersection, his carefully prepared resumes now dancing in the wind like oversized confetti. The woman followed him, her designer heels clicking against the asphalt. One heel was broken, making her gait uneven. "At least let me help you. Let me call someone. You saved my life." "Lady, I appreciate the concern, but I just threw away my daughter's future to save you. So please just let me try to salvage something from this disaster." He bent to gather the resumes, biting back a groan as his ribs protested. Half of them were ruin torn or marked by tire tracks. His briefcase had sprung open on impact, spilling everything. His meager lunch, a peanut butter sandwich he'd made for after the interview, Lily's school photo that he kept for luck, the folder with his certificates and recommendations. 8:51 a.m. It was over. Even if he ran, which his body was clearly incapable of doing, he'd never make it in time. Companies like Donovan Technologies didn't give second chances to people who showed up late, especially not when they had 199 other candidates to choose from. "Your daughter," the woman asked softly, picking up Lily's photo. It was the one from last year's school picture day. Lily grinning with her two front teeth missing, wearing the dress Margaret had bought her before the cancer diagnosis. Daniel snatched the photo back, perhaps more roughly than necessary. Forget it, just forget it. He stood there in the middle of the intersection, his ruined suit jacket flapping in the morning breeze, watching the Donovan Technologies building like it was a life raft floating away from his sinking ship. Cars were beginning to move again, drivers honking and swerving around them. "We should get out of the road," the woman said. Daniel laughed, a bitter sound that hurt his ribs. "Yeah, wouldn't want to cause any more problems." He limped to the sidewalk, the woman still following despite her broken heel. A crowd had gathered, people with their phones out, probably posting videos of the crazy man who'd run across the bridge and tackled a woman in the street. Tomorrow's viral sensation. Perfect. "Sir, are you all right?" A police officer approached, his hand resting casually on his belt. "We got reports of a man causing a disturbance on the bridge." "That was me," Daniel admitted. "I had to get off the bus. There was an emergency." "The emergency being saving my life," the woman interjected, stepping forward with a natural authority that made the officer straighten. "This man just prevented a fatal accident. If anything, he should be commended." The officer looked between them, taking in Daniel's torn clothes and the woman's disheveled but obviously expensive appearance. "Ma'am, are you saying this man—" "Saved my life, yes. I was distracted, didn't see the truck. He pushed me out of the way." She pulled out her phone, a newer model that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. "I need to call my office, let them know I'll be late. Officer, is there paperwork we need to fill out?" "We'll need statements from both of you," the officer said. "The truck driver too, once we track him down. He left the scene." "He probably didn't even know how close he came to hitting us," Daniel said. "I don't want to press charges or anything. I just want to go home." "Sir, you should really have those injuries looked at," the officer said, gesturing to Daniel's visible scrapes and the way he was favoring his left side. "I'm fine." "He's not fine," the woman said. "He needs medical attention, and I'm going to make sure he gets it." "Lady Clara," she said. "Clara Donovan." Daniel froze. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Donovan? As in, Donovan Technologies, yes." She extended her hand, which he stared at like it might bite him. "And you are—" "Unemployed," he said flatly. "Daniel Hayes, formerly hopeful job applicant, currently unemployed idiot who just ruined his only chance at an interview with your company." Her eyebrows rose. "You were coming to interview with us." "Was past tense, the interview started." He checked his phone. 4 minutes ago. "For a logistics coordinator position that had 200 applicants. I'm pretty sure showing up late eliminated me from consideration." Clara Donovan studied him for a long moment, her green eyes sharp and calculating. Then she turned to the police officer. "Officer, would it be possible to give our statements later? Mr. Hayes needs medical attention, and I need to handle this situation immediately." "Ma'am, we really need—" She pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "Call my office. My assistant will schedule a time for us to come to the station. Right now I have a debt to repay." Without waiting for a response, she turned to Daniel. "Come with me." "Where?" "To my office. We're going to have that interview." Daniel stared at her. "I'm late. I look like I've been run over by a truck, almost literally. I'm bleeding on your sidewalk." "You ran across a bridge, abandoned your interview, and risked your life to save a complete stranger," Clara said. "That tells me more about your character than any resume could. Now, are you coming, or are you going to stand here feeling sorry for yourself while your daughter waits to hear good news?" She started walking toward the Donovan Technologies building, her broken heel making her gait uneven, but her spine straight as steel. After a moment of stunned hesitation, Daniel followed. The lobby of Donovan Technologies was everything Daniel had imagined, and more: soaring ceilings, marble floors, a reception desk that probably cost more than his annual rent. He became acutely aware of his appearance, torn suit blood seeping through his pants hair, wild from the wind. Security guards were already moving toward them. "He's with me," Clara said, and the guards immediately backed off. The power in her voice, the way everyone instantly deferred to her, this wasn't just an executive. This was the CEO. Daniel had saved the CEO of Donovan Technologies. They rode the elevator in silence to the top floor. Daniel caught their reflection in the polished doors. They looked like they'd been in a bar fight, not a morning commute. Clara was typing rapidly on her phone, occasionally glancing at him with an expression he couldn't read. The elevator opened into an executive suite that took his breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Modern art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime adorned the walls. An assistant immediately rushed forward. "Miss Donovan, we've been trying to reach you. The Hartford meeting." "Postpone it." Clara didn't break stride. "Clear my morning and get the first aid kit. Also call down to HR. Tell them to send up everyone involved in the logistics coordinator interviews." "Ma'am." "Now, Patricia." Clara led Daniel into her office, a space larger than his entire apartment. She gestured to a leather chair. "Sit before you fall over." Daniel sat, his body suddenly reminding him of every impact, every scrape, every bruise. His shoulder throbbed where he'd hit the ground, and he was pretty sure he'd cracked a rib. Patricia returned with a first aid kit and a glass of water. Clara took the kit and, to Daniel's surprise, knelt in front of him, beginning to clean the scrape on his hand with gentle efficiency. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She didn't look up from her work. "Do you know what you saved me from?" "Getting hit by a truck seems pretty self-explanatory." "No, Mr. Hayes. You saved me from leaving my 8-year-old daughter without a mother. You saved me from never seeing my husband again. You saved me from missing every birthday, every graduation, every moment that makes life worth living." She looked up then, and there were tears in her eyes. "I was distracted checking emails about a merger that seemed so important 5 minutes ago and now feels like absolutely nothing. You gave me back my life. The least I can do is give you a job interview." "It's not really an interview if you feel obligated to hire me out of gratitude." Clara laughed, a surprisingly warm sound. "Oh, Mr. Hayes, I built this company from nothing. I don't do anything out of obligation. If you're not qualified, I won't hire you, but something tells me a man who can calculate the trajectory needed to save someone from a speeding truck might be exactly the kind of analytical mind we need in logistics." A knock on the door interrupted them. 3 people in suits entered, looking confused and slightly apprehensive. Daniel recognized one of them, the HR director whose photo was on the company website. "Ms. Donovan." The HR director said, "You wanted to see us about the logistics coordinator position." "Yes, I want you to interview Mr. Hayes here." They looked at Daniel's disheveled appearance with barely concealed surprise. "Ma'am," the HR director said carefully, "Mr. Hayes missed his scheduled interview time. We've already begun evaluating other candidates." "Then unevaluate them. Mr. Hayes had an emergency." "With respect, Ms. Donovan, we have a process. If we make exceptions—" Clara stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Mr. Hayes missed his interview because he was saving my life. He abandoned his opportunity to push me out of the path of a truck. Now you can either interview him, or you can explain to the board why you turned away someone who exemplifies the exact qualities we claim to value in this company: sacrifice, quick thinking, and putting others before himself. Your choice." The HR team exchanged glances. The director cleared his throat. "Of course, Mr. Hayes, would you like a moment to freshen up?" Daniel looked down at himself, torn clothes, blood dirt. "I think we're past that point. Let's just do this." What followed was the strangest interview of his life. He answered questions about supply chain optimization while Clara personally bandaged his scraped hands. He discussed his experience with inventory management systems while trying not to wince from his bruised ribs. He presented his ideas for improving efficiency, ideas he'd spent countless late nights developing while sitting in a CEO's office that looked like something from a movie. But as he talked, something shifted. The interviewer stopped seeing his torn clothes and started listening to his ideas. He told them about redesigning the warehouse layout at his previous job, increasing efficiency by 23% with zero budget. He explained how being a single parent had taught him to maximize resources to find creative solutions when traditional ones weren't available. He shared his vision for predictive logistics modeling using data analysis to anticipate problems before they occurred. "Your resume says you only have an associate's degree," one interviewer noted. "That's correct. I was working on my bachelor's, but my wife got sick. Medical bills, raising a daughter alone, continuing education became a luxury I couldn't afford. But I've kept learning. I audit online courses when Lily's asleep. I read every industry publication the library has. A degree is just paper. Knowledge is what matters. And what makes you think you can compete with candidates who have master's degrees from top universities? Daniel thought about Lily, about the eviction notice, about all the nights he'd stayed up studying while she slept, determined to build something better for her. Because none of them want this as much as I do, he said simply. They see a job. I see a future. They're climbing a ladder. I'm trying to build a foundation. You want someone who will give 110%. I've been giving that just to survive. Imagine what I could do with actual resources and support. Clara had been quiet throughout the interview, but Daniel could feel her watching him evaluating. When the interviewers finished their questions, she finally spoke. Tell me about your daughter. It wasn't a typical interview question, but nothing about this morning had been typical. Lily's 7. She's everything. Smart, kind, resilient in ways no 7-year-old should have to be. She does her homework at the library because it's quieter than our apartment. She tells me she likes cereal for dinner because it's her favorite, not because she knows it's all we can afford sometimes. His voice caught. She lost her mom 2 years ago and still finds reasons to smile every day. She makes me want to be better than I am. And what would this job mean for her? Stability. Real food instead of cereal dinners. New shoes instead of hoping the duct tape holds. Staying in the same school with her friends. Maybe even, he paused, feeling embarrassed by the dream, maybe even college someday. A real chance at a future that's bigger than just getting by. Clara stood. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. We'll be in touch. The dismissal was clear. Daniel rose, his body protesting every movement. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for not letting my heroics go to waste. He made it to the door before Clara spoke again. Mr. Hayes, be here Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Patricia will have your employment paperwork ready. Daniel turned certain he'd misheard. I'm sorry. The job, it's yours if you want it. But the other candidates had perfect resumes and rehearsed answers. You had the courage to sacrifice everything for a stranger. In my experience, the latter is much harder to find. She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Plus, you're right. Your ideas for predictive modeling are exactly what we need. I'd be an idiot to let you walk out of here. Daniel stood, frozen, unable to process what was happening. I don't know what to say. Say you'll be here Monday, on time. And Mr. Hayes, wear a suit that isn't torn. We'll advance your first paycheck to cover it. The tears came then, sudden and unstoppable. Daniel Hayes, who hadn't cried since Margaret's funeral, stood in the doorway of a CEO's office and wept. Thank you, he managed. Thank you. No, Mr. Hayes, thank you. You reminded me that some things matter more than meetings and mergers. Now go home. Tell your daughter the good news. And for God's sake, see a doctor about those ribs. Daniel nodded, not trusting his voice, and left the office. He made it to the elevator before his legs gave out and he had to lean against the wall for support. His phone buzzed a text from Mrs. Chen asking if everything was okay. Everything was more than okay. Everything was impossible and miraculous, and proof that sometimes, just sometimes, doing the right thing led to the right outcome. He called Mrs. Chen first. Can you keep Lily after school? I need to stop by the hospital, then I have good news to share. You got the job, she asked excitedly. I got more than that, Mrs. Chen. I got a chance. The hospital confirmed 2 cracked ribs and multiple contusions, nothing that wouldn't heal with time. They wanted to keep him for observation, but Daniel signed himself out. He had a daughter to see, news to share, a future to start planning. He stopped at the grocery store on the way home, using his last $20 to buy ingredients for a real dinner. Chicken, vegetables, even ice cream for dessert. The cashier looked at his bandaged hands and torn clothes with concern, but Daniel just smiled. When he finally made it home, Lily was doing homework at the kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration, the way it always did when she was focused. She looked up as he entered, her face shifting from hope to concern in an instant. Daddy, what happened? You look hurt. I'm okay, baby. Just a little adventure on the way to the interview. Did you get the job? The hope in her voice was almost painful. Daniel knelt in front of her, ignoring his protesting ribs. Yeah, sweetheart, I got the job. Lily launched herself at him, and he caught her despite the pain, holding her tight as she laughed and cried simultaneously. I knew it. I knew you would. You're the best daddy in the whole world. There's more, he said, setting her down. We're going to be okay, Lily. Really okay. No more worrying about rent. No more cereal dinners unless you actually want them. You can stay in your school with your friends. Really? Really? She hugged him again, gentler this time, noticing his wince. Daddy, why are you hurt? So he told her, editing out the scarier parts, turning it into an adventure story about helping someone who needed it. Lily listened with wide eyes, her hand holding his. You gave up your interview to save someone, she asked when he finished. I almost did. But it turned out the person I saved was the boss of the whole company. Lily giggled. Like in a fairy tale. Kind of, yeah. Mommy would be proud of you, she said solemnly. You did the right thing even when it was hard. Daniel pulled her close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent. You know what I think she would be? That night, as Daniel tucked Lily into bed, she asked, Daddy, do you think good things happen to good people? He thought about the morning, the missed alarm, the desperate run, the moment of choice that could have cost them everything but instead had given them a new beginning. Sometimes baby, not always, but sometimes, and today was definitely a sometimes. I love you, Daddy. To the moon and back, to the stars and beyond. As she drifted off to sleep, Daniel stood in her doorway, watching her peaceful face in the glow of her nightlight. Tomorrow, he'd have to figure out how to get a new suit, how to prepare for a job he'd barely dared to dream about, how to navigate a corporate world he'd only seen from the outside. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be more than okay. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Hayes, this is Clara Donovan. I wanted to check that you got medical attention. Also, I've arranged for our company tailor to meet you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for your new suit. The address is attached. Don't argue, consider it a signing bonus. Welcome to Donovan Technologies. You've already proven you belong here. Daniel smiled, looking back at Lily's sleeping form. The sacrifice had been worth it. The desperate run, the moment of choice, the leap of faith, all of it had led to this moment, this chance, this new beginning. Sometimes losing everything really was the only way to gain what truly mattered. And sometimes Daniel thought as he headed to his own bed, exhausted but hopeful for the first time in years, the universe had a plan after all, even if that plan involved nearly getting hit by a truck to find it. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation and disbelief. Daniel stood in front of his bathroom mirror Monday morning, adjusting the tie on his new suit for the third time. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, soft wool instead of polyester, perfectly tailored instead of off the rack. The company tailor had insisted on 2 suits despite Daniel's protests, claiming Miss Donovan had been very specific about ensuring he had proper attire. Daddy, you look like a businessman from TV, Lily said from the doorway, her eyes wide with admiration. Feel like an imposter, Daniel muttered, then forced a smile for his daughter. But thank you, sweetheart. You ready for school? Mrs. Chen is walking me today, remember? Because you have to be at work early. Work. The word still felt surreal. After 2 years of odd jobs, warehouse shifts, and unemployment checks that never quite covered everything, he had real work. A salary, benefits, a future that extended beyond the next overdue bill. Right, I'll pick you up after school. Okay, we'll celebrate with pizza. Real pizza, not the frozen kind. Real pizza, from Antonio's with the cheese you like. Lily's squeal of delight followed him out the door, a sound he carried like armor against the nervousness churning in his stomach. The commute to Donovan Technologies felt different this time. No desperate running, no racing against time. He'd left 45 minutes early, paranoid about being late on his first day. The bus was filled with the same faces from last week, but Daniel felt like he'd crossed into a different world entirely. He arrived at the building 20 minutes early and spent 10 of them standing outside gathering courage. The security guard from Friday recognized him. How could he not after the spectacle Daniel had made and offered a friendly nod? Ms. Donovan told us to expect you, Mr. Hayes. Elevator straight to the 10th floor. HR is waiting. The 10th floor, not the executive suite. Daniel felt both relief and disappointment. Of course, Clara Donovan wouldn't be handling his orientation personally. She'd already done more than he could have imagined. Patricia Clara's assistant met him at the elevator. Mr. Hayes, good morning. You look much better than the last time I saw you. Amazing what not being hit by traffic can do for your appearance. Daniel replied, then immediately worried the joke was inappropriate. But Patricia smiled. Ms. Donovan speaks highly of your quick thinking. She doesn't do that often, so you've made quite an impression. This way, please. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of paperwork, ID photos, and information that made Daniel's head spin. His salary was more than double what he'd made at the warehouse. The health insurance started immediately, real insurance, not the catastrophic coverage he'd barely been able to maintain for Lily. There was even a college savings plan the company would contribute to. This has to be a mistake, Daniel said when the HR representative showed him the benefits package. This is for senior positions, isn't it? Ms. Donovan was very specific about your compensation package, the woman replied. She said, and I quote, make sure Mr. Hayes never has to worry about choosing between his job and doing the right thing again. By lunch, Daniel was installed in his new office, not a cubicle, an actual office with a door and a window overlooking the city. His nameplate was already on the desk, Daniel Hayes, logistics coordinator. He ran his fingers over the letters, half expecting them to smudge to prove this was all some elaborate dream. A knock on his door interrupted his reverie. A man entered, tall and sharp-featured, with the kind of aggressive confidence that immediately put Daniel on edge. So you're the hero, the man said, though his tone suggested the word tasted sour. Marcus Webb, Senior Logistics Manager. I'll be your direct supervisor. Daniel stood extending his hand. Daniel Hayes. Nice to meet you. Marcus's handshake was deliberately crushing. Let's be clear about something, Hayes. I don't care what you did for Ms. Donovan. I've been here 8 years, worked my way up from the mailroom. I don't appreciate having someone dropped into my department because they played Superman. I understand your concern. No, I don't think you do. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. I had someone lined up for this position, someone qualified with a master's degree and 5 years of experience, someone who didn't get the job because you had the luck to be in the right place at the right time. Daniel felt his jaw clench. After years of rejection of being told he wasn't enough, he'd finally caught a break, and now this. With respect, Mr. Webb, I didn't ask for special treatment. I came to interview like everyone else. Except you didn't interview like everyone else, did you? You got a private session with the CEO herself. You think that's fair to the other candidates? You think it was fair when my wife died and I had to drop out of college to raise my daughter alone? You think it was fair when I got laid off because the warehouse shut down? Not because of my performance, but because of corporate economics? Daniel's voice remained steady, but there was steel beneath it. Fair is a luxury I haven't been able to afford for a long time. So excuse me if I don't feel guilty about catching one break in a lifetime of bad hands. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Touching story. But sob stories don't run supply chains. You'll have to prove yourself here, and I won't make it easy. I wouldn't expect you to. Your first assignment is on your desk, distribution analysis for our East Coast operations. I want a full report by Thursday. Marcus turned to leave, then paused at the door. That's the kind of project I usually give people 2 weeks to complete. Let's see if you're as clever as Ms. Donovan thinks you are. After Marcus left, Daniel sank into his chair, the weight of the challenge settling on his shoulders. He opened the folder on his desk, scanning the scope of the project. It was massive 18 distribution centers, hundreds of routes, thousands of data points. Marcus was right. This was at least a 2-week project, probably more. But Daniel had spent 2 years stretching $1 into 5, making miracles out of grocery money, finding ways to make the impossible possible. This was just another puzzle, and he'd gotten very good at solving puzzles. He worked through lunch, mapping out the distribution network, identifying patterns and inefficiencies. His notebook filled with calculations, route optimizations, and ideas for consolidation that could save the company significant money. By 3 o'clock, he'd built a preliminary framework that would cut transportation costs by 12% without sacrificing delivery times. His phone buzzed, a reminder about picking up Lily. For the first time in 2 years, he had to arrange his work around his life, not the other way around. He saved his work, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the elevator. As the doors were closing, a hand shot through, forcing them open. Clara Donovan stepped in, looking as polished as she had that first day, no trace of the woman who'd almost been killed in traffic. "Mr. Hayes, how's your first day, bit?" "Educational," Daniel replied carefully. "Marcus Webb has given me quite the welcome assignment." Clara's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "The East Coast distribution analysis. That's typically a team project. He mentioned it might be challenging." Challenging. She seemed to taste the word. "Marcus is testing you. He resents my involvement in hiring decisions." "I can handle it. I know you can. That's why you're here." The elevator opened at the lobby. "How's your daughter?" "Excited about real pizza tonight. It's been a while since we could afford Antonio's." Clara pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. "You'll find a gift card in your email. Antonio's is excellent, but their dessert menu is even better. Every 7-year-old deserves tiramisu." Before Daniel could protest, she was gone, striding toward a waiting town car. He stood in the lobby, phone in hand, seeing the email notification pop up. The gift card was for $200. Enough for several dinners, not just one. He wanted to be proud to refuse charity. But then he thought of Lily's face when she saw the dessert menu, the way her eyes would light up at having choices instead of limits. Pride was another luxury he couldn't afford, at least not yet. The school pickup line was filled with minivans and SUVs, parents scrolling through phones while waiting for their children. Daniel stood at the Walker's gate, where he always met Lily, watching for her bright purple backpack in the stream of students. She came running, as always, but this time she was accompanied by another girl, blonde and well-dressed, clearly from one of the wealthier families. "Daddy, this is Emma. She's in my class. I told her you got a really important job, and she didn't believe me." Emma looked at Daniel with the skeptical assessment only 7-year-olds could manage. "Lily said you work in a big building with glass elevators. That's not true, is it?" "It is true," Daniel said, kneeling to their level. "Would you like to see a picture?" He showed them the photo he'd taken from his office window. Both girls gasped appropriately. "See," Lily said triumphantly. "I told you my daddy was important." "That's so cool," Emma admitted. "My dad just works at a bank. It's boring." As Emma ran to her mother's Lexus, Lily slipped her hand into Daniel's. "Is it okay that I told her I was just so proud?" "It's always okay to be proud, sweetheart. Just remember, the job doesn't make someone important. How they treat people does. Like how you saved that lady, 'cause..." Something like that. Antonio's was everything Daniel remembered from the before times when Margaret was alive, and they could occasionally splurge on a nice dinner. The smell of garlic and basil, the warm lighting, the gentle hum of families enjoying meals together. Lily's eyes went wide when the waiter handed her a menu. "I can really choose anything you want." She ordered with the seriousness of someone making a life-changing decision, finally settling on cheese ravioli after extensive deliberation. When the dessert menu came and Daniel told her to pick something, she looked like she might cry. "This is the best day ever," she whispered, and Daniel had to look away, blinking hard. They were halfway through Lily's tiramisu when a familiar voice made Daniel look up. "Well, this is a pleasant surprise." Clara Donovan stood by their table, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the CEO who commanded boardrooms. Next to her was a girl about Lily's age with Clara's auburn hair and sharp features. "Ms. Donovan." Daniel started to stand, but she waved him down. "Clara, please, we're not in the office. This is my daughter, Sophie." Sophie was eyeing Lily's tiramisu with obvious envy. "Mom, can I have dessert too?" "After dinner, sweetheart," Clara gestured to an empty chair. "May we join you? I hate eating alone, and Sophie's father is traveling for business." Daniel nodded, still stunned by the surreal turn his life had taken. 3 days ago, he was nobody. Now the CEO of a major company was asking to share his table. Sophie and Lily fell into immediate conversation about school dolls and the mysterious politics of second grade. Clara ordered wine for the adults and dinner for herself and Sophie, waving off Daniel's attempts to split the check. "How did the East Coast project land on your desk?" Clara asked once the girls were deep in discussion about their favorite books. "Marcus Webb wanted to test me. And I'll have it done by Thursday." Clara raised an eyebrow. "The whole analysis. I've had harder challenges, like figuring out how to make $20 last a week for groceries. That's not the same as corporate logistics. Isn't it limited resources, maximum efficiency, creative solutions when traditional ones don't work? The scale is different, but the principles are the same." Clara studied him over her wine glass. "You know, most people would be intimidated. First day impossible, deadline hostile supervisor. Most people haven't had to explain to their kid why there's no food in the fridge. After that, corporate politics seem pretty manageable." "Daddy used to make games when we had cereal dinner," Lily piped up, having overheard. "He'd pretend we were astronauts and it was space food." Daniel felt heat rise to his cheeks, but Clara smiled. "That's resourceful. Sophie, remember when we had to camp in the living room when the power went out?" "You made it an adventure," Sophie said. "We had flashlight stories and cold sandwiches." "Parents do what they have to do," Clara said, meeting Daniel's eyes with understanding. The conversation drifted to safer topics, the girls' school activities, the upcoming autumn festival, a normal parent concerns that felt extraordinary to Daniel after so long surviving in crisis mode. When they finally parted ways, Sophie and Lily had exchanged phone numbers, already planning a playdate. "She doesn't have many friends," Clara said quietly, while the girls ran ahead to look at the restaurant's fish tank. "Being the boss's daughter comes with its own challenges." "Lily could use a friend, too. Being the poor kid hasn't been easy." "Maybe they can help each other." Clara paused, then added, "Marcus won't let up, you know. He sees you as a threat." "Because you hired me. Because you represent change. Marcus has built his little kingdom in logistics, and he doesn't want anyone disturbing it. Be careful, but don't back down. The company needs fresh perspectives." That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel spread his work across the kitchen table, diving deep into the distribution analysis. He worked until 2 a.m., fueled by coffee and determination, finding patterns Marcus probably hoped he'd miss. The East Coast operations were hemorrhaging money through redundant routes and poor warehouse placement. But more interesting were the discrepancies in the reporting numbers that didn't quite add up, costs that seemed inflated. He documented everything, meticulously building a case not just for improvement, but for investigation. By Wednesday night, he had a complete report that would typically take a team weeks to compile. Thursday morning, he placed the bound report on Marcus's desk, watching the man's expression shift from smugness to surprise, to something darker as he flipped through the pages. "This is comprehensive," Marcus said carefully. "You'll find the cost-saving recommendations on page 47. Implementation could save the company $3 million annually. And these discrepancies you've noted. I'm sure there are explanations. Accounting errors, perhaps?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'll review this with the team." But by lunch, Daniel was summoned to Clara's office. She had his report on her desk tabs, marking several pages. "You found the Henderson kickbacks," she said without preamble. "I found irregularities. I don't know enough to call them kickbacks." "But you suspected." "The patterns were consistent with inflated invoicing. Henderson Shipping charges us 18% above market rate, but they're Marcus's preferred vendor. Either Marcus is very bad at negotiating or he's getting something out of the arrangement." Clara leaned back in her chair. "I've suspected for months but couldn't prove it. You found evidence in 3 days that my audit team missed in their last review. What happens now? Now I have a decision to make. Marcus has allies, people who've benefited from his arrangements. Moving against him could cause upheaval in the department. Or you could leave him in place and let him continue bleeding the company." Clara smiled, sharp and appreciative. "You're not afraid of making enemies, are you?" "I've been everyone's enemy at some point. The single dad who needed to leave early for school, pick up the employee without a degree, the applicant with gaps in his resume. One more won't kill me." "Good, because I'm promoting you." Daniel blinked. "I've been here 4 days. And in 4 days, you've shown more initiative than people who've been here 4 years. Assistant Director of Logistics, reporting directly to me instead of Marcus. He'll be furious, but he won't be able to touch you. People will say it's favoritism, that you're rewarding me for saving you. Let them. Meanwhile, you'll be saving the company millions and cleaning up a department that's been corrupt for too long. She stood extending her hand. Unless you'd prefer to stay under Marcus's thumb. Daniel shook her hand. When do I start? Monday. That gives Marcus time to clean out his office. I'm not firing him yet. He'll be moved to a position where he can do less damage while we investigate the full extent of his arrangements. Daniel left her office in a daze. In less than a week, he'd gone from unemployed to executive. It felt impossible, like at any moment someone would reveal it was all a mistake or a dream. His phone rang. Lily's school. Mr. Hayes, this is Principal Morrison. There's been an incident with Lily. She's not hurt, but we need you to come in. Daniel's heart plummeted. He practically ran from the building, catching a taxi instead of waiting for the bus. Every terrible scenario played through his mind during the ride. He found Lily in the principal's office, her face streaked with tears, her new dress, the one he'd bought with his first paycheck advance, torn at the sleeve. Next to her sat a boy with a scratch on his cheek, his parents flanking him like guards. What happened? Principal Morrison. A tired-looking woman in her 50s sighed. There was an altercation. Lily pushed Timothy during recess. He said my daddy was a liar, Lily burst out. He said there's no way you got an important job, that we're just poor people pretending. Daniel knelt beside his daughter, his anger at the boy warring with the need to handle this properly. Lily, we don't solve problems with our hands. But he wouldn't stop. He kept saying mean things, saying you probably stole that suit, that people like us don't work in big buildings. The boy's father, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent, scoffed. Maybe if you taught your daughter her place, this wouldn't happen. Excuse me. Daniel stood slowly, his voice dangerously quiet. You heard me. This school has standards. We don't need charity cases causing problems. Mr. Worthington, the principal warned, but the man continued. It's bad enough the school offers these scholarship programs bringing in children who clearly don't belong. Now they're getting violent when confronted with reality. Daniel felt the same calm that had descended when he'd seen the truck bearing down on Clara. The moment when everything became crystal clear. You're right about one thing, Chadson, he said. My daughter doesn't belong here. She belongs somewhere that teaches kindness, along with arithmetic, empathy, along with English. Somewhere that doesn't let entitled bullies children or adults define someone's worth by their bank account. He turned to the principal. Lily will apologize for pushing Timothy. Violence is never acceptable, but I expect the same consequences for Timothy's verbal harassment, unless this school has different rules for different tax brackets. The principal shifted uncomfortably. Of course not. Timothy, you'll apologize as well, and both children will have detention tomorrow. Detention? Mrs. Worthington gasped. For words, this is ridiculous. Words can hurt as much as hands, Daniel said, gathering Lily's backpack. Sometimes more. They leave scars that don't heal as easily. As they left the office, Daniel heard Mr. Worthington mutter something about knowing their place. He kept walking Lily's hand in his until they reached the car. I'm sorry, Daddy, Lily whispered. I know you said to be good, but he was so mean. I know, baby. Sometimes people are mean because they're scared. What was he scared of? That someone like us might actually succeed, that their money doesn't make them better, just richer. They drove in silence for a while before Lily asked, Are we really going to be okay? Even with people like Timothy's family. Daniel thought about Clara's offer, about the promotion he hadn't even told Lily about yet, about the long road ahead filled with people who would resent his success, question his worth, challenge his right to rise above his circumstances. Yeah, sweetheart, we're going to be more than okay. We're going to prove them all wrong. That evening, while Lily did homework, Daniel got a text from Clara. Heard about the incident at school. The Worthingtons are notorious. Sophie had her own run-in with them last year. Don't let them get to you. Then another. Also, Monday's announcement is going to cause waves. Be ready. But know that I've got your back. Daniel stared at the messages, still struggling to accept this new reality, where CEOs texted him support, where he had someone watching his back instead of waiting for him to fail. His phone rang. Marcus Webb. Enjoying your victory. Marcus's voice was slurred, probably drunk. Marcus, you think you're clever finding those discrepancies. You think Clara will protect you, but you have no idea how things really work here. I've been building relationships for 8 years. You've been here a week. Who do you think people will side with when push comes to shove? The person who isn't stealing from the company. Marcus laughed ugly and bitter. Stealing. Such a harsh word. I prefer accepting gratuities for preferred partnerships. Everyone does it, Hayes. The only difference is I got caught by the teacher's pet. If everyone does it, you won't have trouble finding another arrangement elsewhere. This isn't over. You may have won this round, but I know your type. Single parent, desperate for stability. One mistake, one missed deadline, one complaint from a client, and you'll be gone. And I'll be here waiting. The line went dead. Daniel set down his phone, looking through the kitchen doorway at Lily bent over her homework with the same concentration her mother used to have, tongue poking out slightly as she worked through math problems. Marcus was right about one thing: Daniel was desperate for stability. But Marcus didn't understand what that desperation had taught him. How to fight when exhausted, how to persist when hopeless, how to find solutions when none seemed to exist. The corporate battlefield Marcus threatened was nothing compared to the war Daniel had been fighting for 2 years, the daily struggle to keep his daughter fed, housed, and believing in a better future. Friday came with an email announcing the departmental changes. Daniel's promotion, Marcus's lateral move, a restructuring that would better serve our clients and stakeholders. The language was corporate neutral, but everyone would understand what had really happened. His new office was on the 12th floor with a view of the river and space for a small conference table. His nameplate was already installed: Daniel Hayes, Assistant Director of Logistics. The salary adjustment letter was on his desk, another 40% increase plus performance bonuses. He called his landlord, immediately paying 3 months' rent in advance, the first time he'd ever been ahead instead of behind. Then he called the school, setting up Lily's lunch account for the full year, no more packed sandwiches that marked her as different from her classmates. A knock interrupted his planning. 3 people entered, members of his new team, looking uncertain. Mr. Hayes. A woman stepped forward, middle-aged and professional. I'm Sarah Chen, Senior Analyst. This is Robert Martinez and Jason Park. We were Marcus's team. Now you're our team, Daniel corrected gently. Please sit. Tell me what you're working on. They exchanged glances, clearly surprised by his approach. Marcus apparently had ruled through intimidation and favoritism. We're struggling with the Pacific Northwest distribution network, Robert offered cautiously. There are delays we can't seem to solve. Show me, Daniel said, moving to the whiteboard. Let's figure it out together. For the next 2 hours, they worked through the problem. Daniel listening more than talking, drawing out ideas from people who'd been trained to stay silent. By the end, they'd identified 3 bottlenecks and developed solutions that could be implemented within a week. Marcus never asked our opinion, Sarah said quietly as they prepared to leave. He just gave orders. Well, I'm not Marcus. I've been where you are doing the work while someone else took the credit. That changes now. Your ideas, your recognition. My job is to make sure you have what you need to succeed. Jason lingered after the others left. Can I be honest, Mr. Hayes? Please. When we heard about your promotion, we thought it was just because you saved Miss Donovan, another case of connections mattering more than competence. And now I think Marcus should have been replaced years ago. That afternoon, Daniel implemented his first major decision: transparency in vendor contracts. Every deal would be reviewed by a committee, not a single person. The kickback schemes Marcus had built would be impossible under the new system. He was deep in spreadsheets when Clara appeared in his doorway. How's the new office? Still feels like I'm trespassing, Daniel admitted. That feeling fades. Trust me, I felt the same when I started this company. Every day I expected someone to tell me I didn't belong. She moved to the window, looking out at the city. But belonging isn't about feeling comfortable. It's about doing the work, making things better, proving the doubters wrong through results. The Worthingtons of the world will always exist. Yes, but they don't have to define us. Your daughter stood up to their son because she believes in you. Don't let anyone make you doubt what she sees. After Clara left, Daniel returned to his work, but her words echoed. Lily believed in him. Clara believed in him. Maybe it was time to believe in himself. The weekend brought a new challenge, Sophie's birthday party. Clara had invited them, and Lily was beside herself with excitement. But Daniel knew what it meant entering Clara's social circle, facing people who would judge him, measure him, find him wanting. The party was at Clara's home, a sprawling suburban estate that looked like something from a magazine. Cars in the driveway cost more than Daniel had made in the past 5 years combined. Parents clustered in groups, designer clothes and perfect smiles, conversations about vacation homes and private schools. "Daddy, look. They have a bouncy castle." Lily ran off to join Sophie and the other children, leaving Daniel to navigate the adult terrain alone. "You must be the new hire," a woman said, her tone suggesting "new hire" was code for something less pleasant. Clara mentioned she'd made an unconventional choice. Daniel Hayes. He offered his hand, which she took briefly as if afraid poverty might be contagious. "Vivian Ashford, my husband is on the board. We were quite surprised when Clara bypassed the usual channels for your position. I imagine the usual channels don't often include saving the CEO's life." "No, they usually include proper qualifications and experience." Before Daniel could respond, Clara appeared, slipping her arm through his with casual familiarity. "Vivian, how lovely of you to welcome Daniel, though I should mention his qualifications include identifying $3 million in annual savings and uncovering embezzlement his first week. How long has your husband been on the board?" 5 years. Perhaps he should have caught that himself. Vivian's face flushed. She excused herself quickly. "You didn't have to do that," Daniel said quietly. "Yes, I did. Vivian's a shark who smells blood in the water. Show weakness and she'll devour you." Clara squeezed his arm. "Besides, it's true. You've done more in a week than some people do in a career." The party continued, Daniel finding his footing slowly. He discovered allies in unexpected places. A father who'd also raised his kids alone after divorce, a mother who'd worked her way up from secretary to CFO. People who understood that success came in many forms. As the sun set, Daniel found himself by the pool, watching Lily and Sophie play together, their laughter bright in the evening air. "She's happy," Clara observed, joining him. "Really happy, not the kind children fake for their parents. It's been a long time since I've seen her like this, carefree." "You did that. You gave her that freedom by taking on all the burden yourself." "Any parent would." "No," Clara interrupted. "They wouldn't. Trust me, I know plenty of parents who put themselves first, who choose career over family or money over time. You chose her even when it cost you everything." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughters chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "Why did you really promote me?" "It wasn't just the report or catching Marcus." Clara considered her answer. "Because you reminded me why I started this company. Not for profit margins or market share, but to build something that mattered, that treated people fairly, that rewarded hard work and integrity over connections and cunning. Somewhere along the way, I let people like Marcus infiltrate, compromise those values for the sake of growth. You're my chance to correct that. That's a lot of pressure. You ran across a bridge and tackled a stranger to save her life. I think you can handle pressure." That night, driving home with Lily asleep in the back seat, Daniel reflected on the impossibility of his new life. 2 weeks ago, he'd been counting pennies for bus fare. Now he was attending parties at estates, making decisions that affected millions in revenue, building a future he'd only dreamed about. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. M." Marcus wasn't giving up. Daniel deleted the message, refusing to let the threat shadow his joy. He'd fought too hard, come too far, to let a bitter man's vendetta derail him now. Monday arrived with its promised storm. The office buzzed with gossip about the restructuring, about Daniel's meteoric rise, about Marcus's fall. Some people avoided him, clearly loyal to the old regime. Others approached cautiously, testing the waters of new leadership. Daniel called a department meeting, standing before 40 people who probably knew more about logistics than he did, who'd been with the company longer, who had every reason to resent him. "I know what you're thinking," he began. "Who is this guy? Why should we follow him? What makes him qualified to lead us? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. The truth, I'm not more qualified than many of you. I don't have an advanced degree or decades of experience. What I have is a fresh perspective and a commitment to something radical in corporate culture honesty. He pulled up the distribution analysis on the screen. In 1 week, I found $3 million in savings and evidence of embezzlement. Not because I'm brilliant, but because I looked at things differently, asked questions that hadn't been asked. And because some of you, Sarah, Robert, Jason, were brave enough to share what you knew when given the chance. The room was silent now, attentive. Here's what I promise: your ideas will be heard. Your work will be recognized. Your success will be rewarded. The old system of favorites and kickbacks is dead. We're going to build something better, a department that runs on merit, innovation, and mutual respect. What about Marcus's clients? Someone called out. They're already threatening to leave. Then we let them. Any client who only worked with us because of illegal incentives isn't a client worth keeping. We'll find better ones, honest ones who value service over schemes. After the meeting, people approached him throughout the day. Some with ideas they'd been sitting on for years. Others with concerns about contracts that seemed suspicious. By week's end, Daniel had uncovered 2 more kickback arrangements and a supply chain inefficiency that was costing hundreds of thousands annually. But success came with a price. 3 major clients did leave, making Clara's board nervous. Daniel found his car keyed in the parking garage, a petty revenge that security couldn't quite pin on anyone. Lily came home from school saying Timothy Worthington was telling everyone her daddy was a thief who stole his job. The board meeting was scheduled for Tuesday morning, and Daniel knew his future hung in the balance. Clara had warned him the night before, calling him at home while he helped Lily with her science project about the water cycle. 3 clients leaving has them spooked, she said, her voice tired. Richard Worthington is leading the charge, claiming I'm letting personal feelings cloud my business judgment. The same Worthington whose son has been bullying my daughter. The very same. He's had it out for me since I refused to give his nephew a position last year. You're just his latest weapon. Daniel watched Lily carefully glue cotton balls to represent clouds, her concentration absolute. What do you need me to do? Prove them wrong. Show them numbers they can't argue with. You have 18 hours. 18 hours to justify his existence, to protect not just his job, but Clara's reputation. Daniel tucked Lily into bed, kissed her forehead, then set up his laptop at the kitchen table. The coffee maker became his closest companion as midnight turned to 3 a.m., then 5. By 7, he had it. Not just a defense, but an offense. The 3 clients they'd lost had been their least profitable eating resources while providing minimal return. Their departure actually improved the company's margins. Meanwhile, the transparency initiatives he'd implemented had already attracted 2 new clients. Companies that valued ethical operations over under-the-table deals. He printed his presentation at the office, hands shaking from exhaustion and caffeine, then changed into his best suit in the bathroom. His reflection looked haggard but determined, the face of a man who'd learned to function on no sleep and pure will. The boardroom was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs, windows overlooking the city like they were deciding its fate. 12 board members sat around the table, most in their 60s, all wearing the kind of quiet wealth that whispered rather than shouted. Richard Worthington sat directly across from where Daniel would present, his face already set in disapproval. Clara introduced him simply. Daniel Hayes, our new Assistant Director of Logistics. He'll be presenting on the recent departmental changes. Daniel stood clicking to his first slide. Good morning. I know you have concerns about client retention, so let me start with the numbers that matter. He walked them through it methodically. The cost of corruption, not just in dollars, but in reputation. The long-term projections showing growth through ethical practices. The testimonials from new clients specifically citing transparency as their reason for choosing Donovan Technologies. You're asking us to believe that, Worthington interrupted, that losing clients is somehow good for business. I'm showing you that losing the wrong clients is essential for business, Daniel corrected. Every dollar we made from Henderson Shipping cost us 3 in inefficiency and inflated prices. They weren't partners, they were parasites. Parasites who paid us millions in contracts, another board member pointed out. Millions that came with hidden costs. Employee morale when they see corruption rewarded. talented candidates who choose our competitors because they value integrity, the constant risk of legal exposure if the kickback schemes were discovered. Daniel clicked to his next slide. This is what ethical operation looks like financially. The projection showed growth steady and sustainable based on the new contracts and saved costs from eliminated corruption. These are just projections, Worthington said dismissively. Fantasy numbers from someone who's been here, 3 weeks? 2 weeks, actually, Daniel said calmly. In which I've saved the company more than my annual salary for the next decade. How much have you saved the company in your 5 years on the board, Mr. Worthington? The room went silent. Clara hid a smile behind her hand. Worthington's face reddened. I don't have to justify. No, you don't. You're right. You sit in these meetings, collect your board fees, and make decisions about people like me without ever understanding what we actually do. You've never worked in logistics, never dealt with suppliers, never had to make a broken system function. But you feel qualified to judge whether I belong here. Because what? Because your son goes to the same school as my daughter. That has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with this. You're not concerned about the company. You're concerned about people like me rising to positions you think should be reserved for people like you. How dare you? The numbers don't lie, Mr. Worthington. Since I started, efficiency is up 18%, costs are down 12%, employee satisfaction in the logistics department has increased for the first time in 3 years. If you want to vote against that because you don't like my zip code or my background, then you're the one who doesn't belong in this room. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then from the far end of the table, an elderly woman began to clap slowly. Daniel recognized her from the company website, Martha Stewart, one of the founding board members, Clara's mentor. Finally, she said, someone with spine. Clara, I approve of your choice. Mr. Hayes, keep doing what you're doing. Richard, sit down and stop embarrassing yourself. The vote was called. 8 in favor of maintaining the new logistics structure, 3 against 1 abstention. Daniel had won, but Worthington's glare promised this was far from over. After the meeting, Clara walked him to the elevator. You just made an enemy of one of the most connected men in the city. I already had nothing. Hard to threaten someone who's lost everything before and survived. That's what makes you dangerous to them, Clara said thoughtfully. You're not playing by their rules because you've got nothing left to lose and everything to gain. That afternoon, Daniel was reviewing contracts when Sarah Chen knocked on his door, her face pale. We have a problem. The Patterson shipment to Chicago, it's gone. Gone? The truck never arrived. The driver isn't answering his phone. $2 million of electronics just vanished. Daniel's blood chilled. This was the kind of disaster that could end his career instantly. When did it leave the warehouse? 6 hours ago. It should have been there by now. Get me everything, driver records, route information, GPS data if we have it. And Sarah, keep this quiet for now. As Sarah left, Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but he recognized the voice behind it. Mistakes happen in logistics, expensive ones. Hope you have good insurance. M. Marcus. This wasn't a theft. It was sabotage. Daniel called his contact at the warehouse, Tommy, a supervisor he'd befriended his first week. Tommy, I need you to check something quietly. The Patterson shipment, who loaded it? Let me check. Interesting. Marcus's nephew, Kevin. He specifically requested that shift, said he needed the overtime. The pieces clicked together. Marcus was using his remaining connections to orchestrate a disaster that would fall squarely on Daniel's shoulders. $2 million in losses would be enough for the board to reconsider their vote. But Marcus had underestimated him. Daniel hadn't survived 2 years of single parenthood by being passive when threatened. Tommy, I need you to pull all security footage from that loading, every angle, and check if Kevin's keycard was used anywhere else in the building that night. While Tommy worked, Daniel accessed the GPS system. The truck's tracker had been disabled, but modern trucks had redundant systems. He found the secondary tracker still active, but hidden in the maintenance logs. The truck was parked at an abandoned warehouse 30 miles outside the city. Daniel made a decision that would have been unthinkable in his old life. He called Clara directly. I need your help. Marcus is trying to frame me for a stolen shipment, but I know where it is. I need someone with authority to handle this properly, or it's going to look like I'm covering my own tracks. Where are you? My office. Stay there. I'm coming. 20 minutes later, Clara arrived with the head of security and the company's legal counsel. Daniel laid out what he'd found: the suspicious loading, the disabled tracker, the hidden location, the text message he'd saved despite Marcus trying to use a burner phone. We could call the police, the lawyer suggested, and create a media circus that damages our reputation, Clara countered. Daniel, what do you recommend? It was a test, Daniel realized. How he handled this would define his leadership. We go get our shipment, document everything. Then we give Marcus a choice: resign quietly with no prosecution or face charges that will end with jail time. He's got kids, a family. He'll take the deal. That's generous considering what he's trying to do to you, the security chief noted. I'm not him, Daniel said simply. Breaking him won't fix what he broke. Getting our shipment back and removing him permanently will. They took 2 security vehicles, Daniel riding with Clara, while the security team followed. The abandoned warehouse sat in an industrial district that had seen better days, all broken windows and rusted metal. The truck was there, seals intact. The driver sat in his cab looking terrified when the security team surrounded the vehicle. I didn't want to do it, he stammered. Kevin said it was just a prank, that you'd fired his uncle unfairly. He said we'd just delay the shipment a few hours, make you look bad. I didn't know it would go this far. Daniel looked at the young man, probably barely 20, caught up in someone else's vendetta. You have a choice. Tell us everything, cooperate fully, and keep your job on probation. Or protect Kevin and Marcus and lose everything. Choose. The driver chose wisely. Within an hour, they had written statements, security footage showing Kevin disabling the primary tracker, and phone records between Kevin and Marcus planning the theft. Back at the office, Clara called Marcus personally, putting him on speaker so Daniel could hear. It's over, Marcus. We have everything. Your nephew is in custody. You have until tomorrow morning to submit your resignation, or we file charges. Marcus's breathing was heavy on the other end. This is because of him, isn't it? Your pet project. No, Clara said coldly. This is because you chose crime over competition. Daniel beat you fairly. You chose to become a criminal rather than accept it. I have a family. So does he. The difference is he's teaching his daughter about integrity. You're teaching your nephew about theft. Resignation letter tomorrow, or you'll be teaching him from behind bars. The line went dead. Daniel slumped in his chair, exhaustion hitting him like a wave. It's really over. With Marcus, yes, but there will be others. Success makes enemies, especially unexpected success like yours. That evening, Daniel picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment where she was helping make dumplings for dinner. His daughter ran to him, flower in her hair and joy on her face. Daddy, Mrs. Chen is teaching me to cook. Look, I made these myself. She held up a tray of lopsided dumplings, proud as if she'd created art, which Daniel supposed she had. They're perfect, sweetheart. Stay for dinner, Mrs. Chen insisted. You look tired. Both of you eat. They sat in Mrs. Chen's small kitchen, warm with steam and filled with the comfort of good food and better company. This was wealth, Daniel realized. Not the boardrooms and power plays, but this his daughter, laughing a friend who cared enough to feed them the security of knowing tomorrow would come without fear. Mr. Daniel, Mrs. Chen said quietly while Lily was in the bathroom. I am proud of you. You don't forget where you come from. That's good. But also don't be afraid of where you're going. It's happening so fast. Sometimes I feel like I'll wake up and it'll all be gone. Life is what happens when you're busy making plans, Mrs. Chen quoted. John Lennon, smart man. You can't control everything, but you can choose how you respond. You choose right every time. Trust that. That night after Lily was asleep, Daniel stood on his small balcony looking out at the city lights. His phone rang Clara. I wanted to thank you, she said without preamble, for handling the situation with Marcus professionally. Another person might have sought revenge. Revenge doesn't pay the bills or raise my daughter. No, but it can feel satisfying in the moment. I've learned that the best revenge is success. Marcus wanted to destroy me because I represented his failure. But his failure wasn't losing his position, it was choosing corruption over competence in the first place. You're philosophical for someone who just prevented a $2 million theft. Near-death experiences and single parenthood teach you perspective. Clara laughed. Speaking of which, Sophie hasn't stopped talking about Lily. She wants to know if you'd both like to come to the cabin this weekend. It's nothing fancy, just a place by the lake. The girls could swim, and you look like you could use a break. Daniel hesitated. It was one thing to work for Clara, another to become... what friends? The lines were blurring in ways that made him nervous. I don't want people to think... People will think what they want regardless. My husband will be there if that makes you feel better about appearances. He wants to meet the man who saved his wife's life. In that case, we'd love to come. The week passed in a blur of reorganization. With Marcus gone, Daniel promoted Sarah Chen to team lead, bringing in fresh talent to fill the gaps. The department hummed with new energy, people actually excited about their work for the first time in years. Friday afternoon, he was packing up when Richard Worthington appeared in his doorway. Enjoy it while it lasts. Worthington said, his voice like ice. People like you always overreach, and when you fall, I'll be there to ensure you never get up again. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You embarrassed me in front of the board. You've turned Clara against reasonable voices. But she won't protect you forever, and when she doesn't, you'll go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Daniel stood meeting Worthington's eyes steadily. You know what the difference is between us, Richard. You inherited your position. I earned mine. You've never had to fight for anything, so you don't know how. I've been fighting my whole life. Poverty grief systems designed to keep people like me down. You're just another obstacle, and I've overcome worse. We'll see about that. After Worthington left, Daniel found his hands shaking, not with fear, but with anger. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that Daniel's success was temporary, undeserved. He thought of Lily, how she'd have to navigate this world of Richard's Worthingtons, and his resolve hardened. The cabin weekend was a revelation. Daniel had expected rustic. Instead, he found understated luxury, a massive log structure on a private lake boats, and jet skis waiting at the dock. Clara's husband, Tom, was surprisingly normal, an English professor who seemed amused by the corporate drama his wife navigated. She tells me you tackled her into the pavement, Tom said, handing Daniel a beer while the girls splashed in the shallow water. I owe you more than I can express. Anyone would have... No, they wouldn't. I've studied human behavior for 20 years. Most people freeze in crisis. The few who act rarely act for strangers. You're unusual, Daniel. I just saw someone who needed help. Exactly. You saw a person, not a stranger. That's rarer than you think. The weekend unfolded lazily. Daniel taught both girls to fish patient with their tangled lines and squeals at touching bait. Clara and Tom cooked together the easy rhythm of a couple who'd weathered years side by side. At night they sat around the fire pit, the girls roasting marshmallows, while the adults talked. Tom thinks I should write a book, Clara said, winemaking her contemplative. About building the company, the challenges of being a female CEO. You should, Daniel agreed. Lily needs to see stories of women like you know what's possible. Sophie needs to see stories of people like you, too, Clara countered. Someone who does the right thing regardless of personal cost. That's the real leadership lesson. Later, after the girls were asleep, Daniel stood on the dock looking at stars invisible in the city. Tom joined him, quiet companionship that didn't demand conversation. She's different since you arrived, Tom finally said. More like the woman I married, less like the CEO she thought she had to become. I haven't done anything. You reminded her why she started the company, not for wealth or power, but to make something better. The board people like Worthington, they'd turned her into someone who managed instead of led. You're helping her remember the difference. Sunday evening, driving home with Lily asleep in the back seat, sun-kissed and exhausted from swimming, Daniel felt something he hadn't experienced in years, contentment. Not the fleeting happiness of a good moment, but deep satisfaction with the direction of life. His phone had been quiet all weekend, but as they neared the city, it exploded with messages. Sarah Chen, increasingly frantic, call me immediately. Emergency at the Detroit facility. We need you now. Daniel called her, dread pooling in his stomach. There's been an accident at the Detroit warehouse, a collapse in the storage section. 3 workers injured, 1 critical. OSHA is already on scene. When at 2 hours ago, I've been trying to reach you. I'm 40 minutes out. Get me everything: inspection records, maintenance logs, everything. And Sarah, make sure the injured workers' families are taken care of, whatever they need." He called Clara next, explaining the situation. "This could be bad." She said, "All business now. If there's negligence, I'll find out what happened and fix it. That's what you hired me to do." "Daniel, be careful. A crisis like this, people look for scapegoats. As the newest executive, I'll be the easiest target. I know." He dropped Lily at home with Mrs. Chen, promising to explain later, then drove straight to the office. The night security guard looked surprised to see him, but Daniel barely noticed, focused on getting to his computer. The records told a damning story. The Detroit warehouse had failed 3 safety inspections in the past year, all under Marcus's oversight. Repairs had been approved, but never completed. The money mysteriously redirected to other priorities. Marcus's final act of negligence, a time bomb he'd left behind. Daniel worked through the night building a comprehensive report. By dawn, he had everything: the inspection failures, the redirected funds, emails where Marcus had dismissed safety concerns as excessive caution. But he also had a solution. Emergency repairs could be completed within 72 hours. The injured workers would receive full compensation plus additional support. New safety protocols would prevent future incidents. It would be expensive but survivable. He was printing the report when Richard Worthington walked in, looking far too pleased for someone arriving at a crisis. "Terrible situation," Worthington said, not sounding terrible at all. "The board is meeting in an hour to discuss the liability. Some members feel leadership changes might be necessary to restore confidence." "Some members," meaning you. "I'm simply concerned about the company's reputation. A new executive, a major accident, the optics are troubling." Daniel stood exhausted but determined. "The accident happened because of negligence that predates me by years. I have the proof. But you already know that, don't you?" Worthington's smile faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm stating that you knew about the safety issues. You're on the facilities committee. You signed off on Marcus's budgets, the ones that redirected safety funds. You're as liable as he is." "You can't prove that." Daniel held up a printed email. "Actually, I can. Your approval is right here, along with Marcus's request to delay repairs to boost quarterly numbers that affected your board bonus." Worthington went pale. "What do you want?" "I want you to support the emergency repairs, the worker compensation, and the new safety protocols. I want you to stop undermining Clara and stop targeting me. Or this email finds its way to OSHA, the media, and possibly the FBI, since redirecting safety funds for personal bonuses might interest them. This is blackmail. No, this is consequence. Something you've avoided your whole life. Choose Richard. Fall on your sword privately or publicly, but either way, you're done hurting people for profit." The board meeting was tense. Daniel presented his findings, his solutions, his timeline for resolution. When Worthington was asked for the Facilities Committee's position, he supported Daniel's plan fully, though he looked like each word caused him physical pain. The vote was unanimous. The repairs were approved, the workers would be compensated, and Daniel was given full authority to oversee the safety overhaul. After the meeting, Clara pulled him aside. "What did you say to Richard?" "He looked terrified of you." "I showed him the mirror. He didn't like what he saw." "You're learning the game quickly. It's not a game when people's lives are at stake. 3 workers are in the hospital because someone thought safety was less important than bonuses." "And that's why you'll win," Clara said, "because for you, it's never just business. It's personal. Every decision affects someone's family, someone's future. The Richards of the world forget that. You never will." Daniel spent the next 3 days in Detroit overseeing repairs personally. He visited each injured worker not as a corporate representative, but as someone who understood what it meant to face sudden disaster. He set up education funds for their kids, arranged for meal deliveries during recovery, made sure they knew the company accepted full responsibility. The critical worker, a man named James, had a daughter Lily's age. Daniel sat with James's wife in the hospital waiting room while James was in surgery. "He just wanted to provide for us," she said through tears. "That's all any of us want." "He will," Daniel promised. "His job is secure, medical bills are covered, and I'm personally ensuring the warehouse is safe before anyone goes back in." "Why do you care so much?" "Most executives would just send lawyers."
Daniel thought of Margaret in her hospital bed, of Lily asking why Mommy couldn't come home, of all the moments when someone with power could have helped, but didn't. Because I've been where you are, and I know what it's like when no one cares. James survived surgery, would walk again with therapy. Daniel stayed until he woke up, personally promising that his family would be taken care of. It wasn't corporate protocol, but Daniel had learned that sometimes humanity mattered more than protocol. When he finally returned home Thursday night, Lily was waiting up despite the late hour. "Mrs. Chen said you were helping hurt people," she said, curling into his lap on the couch. "Yeah, baby. Some people got hurt at work and I needed to make sure they'd be okay. Like when you saved Ms. Clara." "Kind of, yeah." "You're a hero, Daddy." "No, sweetheart. I'm just someone trying to do the right thing." "That's what heroes do," Lily said with 7-year-old certainty. Friday brought unexpected news. The media had picked up the story, but instead of a scandal, it became a redemption narrative. "Donovan Technologies takes responsibility," the headlines read. "New executive personally oversees worker care." The stock actually rose, investors responding to the company's ethical stance. Marcus was arrested that afternoon, the FBI apparently very interested in his financial redirections. Worthington quietly announced his resignation from the board, citing personal reasons. Daniel was reviewing the positive press coverage when Sarah Chen knocked.
"There's someone here to see you. Says he's from Hartman Industries." Hartman Industries, their biggest competitor. Daniel's stomach tensed. The visitor was a polished man in his 40s, extending a business card that read, "David Hartman, CEO." "Mr. Hayes, I'll be direct. What you've accomplished here in just a month is remarkable. I'd like to offer you a position with us. Double your current salary, full relocation package, and a signing bonus that would set your daughter up for life." Daniel stared at the offer, calculating what that money could mean. Private school for Lily without scholarship stigma. A real house with a yard. College funds that would let her choose any university. That's a generous offer. You've earned it. Someone who can turn crisis into opportunity, who understands both efficiency and humanity, that's rare. "Can I ask why you're really here?" Hartman smiled. "You're right to be suspicious. Truth is, we're going after Donovan's market share. Having you would be a coup both for your skills and the message it would send." "You want to use me to hurt Clara?" "I want to use you to win. Business is war, Mr. Hayes." "No," Daniel said quietly. "It's not. That's the thinking that led to 3 workers in the hospital. Business is about building something, creating value, serving needs. War is about destruction." That's a noble perspective. It's also naive. Maybe, but I'd rather be naive with integrity than sophisticated without it. Hartman stood, leaving his card on the desk. "When Donovan disappoints you, and she will, they all do, call me." After he left, Daniel sat quietly thinking about loyalty and opportunity, about what success really meant. His phone buzzed, a text from Clara. "Heard about Hartman's visit. Thank you for staying." He hadn't told her. She had her own sources, probably had them everywhere. It should have bothered him, the surveillance, the corporate games. But somehow knowing she was watching felt less like spying and more like support. That weekend, Timothy Worthington wasn't at school anymore. Lily came home with news that he'd transferred to a private academy across town. His parting words to her had been typically cruel. "My dad says your dad is a nobody who got lucky." "What did you say?" Daniel asked, worried she'd been hurt. "I said luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Sophie taught me that. It's what her mom says." Daniel hugged his daughter, amazed at her resilience. "You know what? Let's celebrate Timothy being gone. Ice cream for dinner." "Really? Really? Sometimes you have to mark the moments when bad things leave to make room for good things." They were at the ice cream shop, Lily deep in a sundae that was definitely too large, when Sophie and Clara walked in. "Great minds," Clara said, though Daniel suspected this wasn't entirely coincidence. The girls immediately fell into conversation, leaving the adults to their own devices. "Hartman's offer was real," Clara said quietly. "Double salary is significant. Money isn't everything. It is when you don't have it. I have enough now. Enough is powerful when you've lived with nothing." Clara studied him. "You're different from anyone I've worked with." Because I'm not really working with you. I'm working for something bigger, stability for Lily, helping people like James, proving that success doesn't require sacrificing your soul. The board wants to promote you again. Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. It's been a month. A month where you've saved the company millions, prevented a PR disaster, and removed 2 corrupt influences. They want you as director of operations. It would put you on the executive committee direct report to me, oversight of all logistics and facilities nationally. That's a position for someone with decades of experience. It's a position for someone who gets results. The experience argument is what keeps the same people in power making the same mistakes. We need fresh perspectives. Worthington's friends will revolt. Let them. I'm done playing politics with people's lives. Either we build something worth building, or we're just another company sacrificing people for profit. Daniel looked at Lily, chocolate sauce on her nose, animatedly explaining something to Sophie about their science class volcano project. Can I think about it? Take the weekend. But Daniel, don't think too small. I didn't hire you to be safe. I hired you to be transformative. Sunday night found Daniel at his kitchen table, the promotion offer spread before him like a map to an unknown country. Director of operations would mean traveling longer hours, responsibilities that would affect thousands of employees. It would mean less time with Lily, just when she'd finally gotten him back from the survival mode they'd lived in for 2 years. You're thinking too loud, Mrs. Chen said from his doorway. She'd developed a habit of checking on them, bringing leftover soup or fresh bread, small kindnesses that meant everything. Sorry, did I wake you? Old people don't sleep much. What troubles you? Daniel explained the promotion, the opportunity, the fear that success might cost him something more valuable than money. Mrs. Chen sat across from him, her weathered hands folded. When my husband died, I had choice. Stay in China with family, safe but small life. Or come to America alone, dangerous but maybe better for my children. You know what I chose. You took the risk. No, I took the opportunity. Risk is when you gamble. Opportunity is when you build. You are builder, Mr. Daniel. Build something. Monday morning, Daniel accepted the promotion. The announcement went out company-wide by noon, and his email immediately exploded with congratulations, concerns, and barely veiled threats from those who'd allied with Worthington. His new office was on the executive floor, 3 doors down from Clara. The view stretched across the entire city, a perspective that still felt surreal. Sarah Chen would take over his previous position, her competence finally recognized. Don't forget us little people, she joked, helping him pack his things. There are no little people, Daniel replied. Just people the system hasn't noticed yet. His first executive committee meeting was a trial by fire. The other directors, all with decades of experience, watched him like circling sharks. The CFO, a woman named Patricia Stern, was particularly skeptical. Mr. Hayes, your proposal to overhaul our entire distribution network within 6 months seems ambitious, she said, which Daniel understood meant impossible and naive. The current network was designed 15 years ago when we were a third of our current size, Daniel responded. We're essentially wearing children's clothes as adults. It doesn't fit, it's restrictive, and it's embarrassing when someone looks closely. The cost of restructuring will be offset by efficiency gains within 18 months. I've run the numbers. He distributed his analysis, watching their expressions shift from skepticism to interest. Moreover, 3 of our main competitors are already modernizing. If we don't act, we'll be the Blockbuster to their Netflix. That's a dramatic comparison, the head of sales interjected. Dramatic times require dramatic thinking. We nearly lost 3 workers because we were too comfortable with the status quo. How many other time bombs are ticking while we debate whether change is too ambitious? Clara watched silently, letting him sink or swim on his own merit. By the meeting's end, he'd won approval for a pilot program in the Midwest region. Not everything he'd wanted, but enough to prove his point. That afternoon, a man appeared in his office without knocking, tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone who'd never been denied entry anywhere. Mr. Hayes, I'm James Morrison. Perhaps you've heard of me. Daniel had. Morrison was a legend in logistics. Had written the textbook Daniel studied in night school, had built 3 Fortune 500 companies' supply chains from scratch. Sir, it's an honor. Save it. I'm here because Clara asked me to evaluate you. She thinks you're some kind of prodigy. I think you're a lucky amateur who's about to get a lot of people hurt with your ignorance. Daniel felt his spine straighten. With respect, Mr. Morrison, you don't know anything about me. I know you have no advanced degree. I know you've been in logistics for less than 5 years. I know you're making decisions that will affect thousands of jobs based on intuition rather than expertise. You're right. I don't have your credentials, but I have something you might have forgotten. I know what it's like to be affected by those decisions. Every inefficiency you see as a number on a spreadsheet, I see as someone's overtime they can't spend with their kids. Every cost-cutting measure that looks good in the boardroom might mean someone choosing between medicine and groceries. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Business isn't a charity. No, but it doesn't have to be a machine that grinds people up for profit either. You built incredible systems, Mr. Morrison. But did you ever ask the people working in them if they were sustainable? Not the systems, the people. You think you can do better. I think I can do different. Maybe that's what's needed now. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Show me your Midwest pilot plan. For the next 3 hours, Morrison dissected Daniel's proposal with surgical precision. But instead of being defensive, Daniel listened, learned, adjusted. By the end, his plan was stronger, incorporating Morrison's experience with his fresh perspective. You might not be a complete disaster, Morrison finally admitted. But you need help, real expertise, not just good intentions. Then help me. I'm retired. You're bored. That's why you came when Clara called. You miss building things. Help me build something that matters. Morrison left without committing, but Daniel saw interest in his eyes, the spark of someone who'd been reminded why they loved their work. That evening, Daniel was reviewing regional reports when his phone rang. Lily's school. Mr. Hayes, there's been an incident. Lily's fine, but we need you to come immediately. Daniel's heart started raced. He grabbed his keys and ran, not caring who saw the director of operations sprinting through the executive parking garage. At the school, he found Lily in the nurse's office, holding an ice pack to her lip. Her new dress was torn, her knee scraped, but her eyes were fierce rather than tearful. What happened? The principal, Mrs. Morrison, looked uncomfortable. There was an altercation with several older students. They were saying things about you, about your promotion. Lily defended you. They said you didn't deserve it. Lily said, her voice slightly muffled by the swollen lip. They said their parents told them you were just Clara's pet, that you'd fail, and we'd be poor again. I told them they were wrong. And then Rebecca pushed me. So I pushed back. Then her brother got involved. Lily lifted her chin defiantly. I didn't start it, but I didn't run either. Daniel knelt beside her, checking her injuries, his rage carefully controlled. Where are these other students? Their parents are with them in my office, the principal said. They're upset. I bet they are. The office held 3 sets of parents, all wearing the same expression of entitled indignation Daniel had come to recognize. Their children, 2 girls and a boy, all older than Lily, sat with the sullen looks of kids who'd never faced real consequences. Your daughter attacked our children, one mother began immediately. 3 children, all older and bigger than her, and she attacked them. Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. That's your story. She's violent, just like what? Like her father, who grew up poor, who worked his way up, who threatens your comfortable assumption that success is inherited rather than earned. The father of the boy stepped forward. Now see here. No, you see here. Daniel stood to his full height. Your son, who's 12, helped assault a 7-year-old girl because his parents filled his head with poison about social hierarchy. What does that say about you? How dare? I dare because I'm done pretending this is acceptable. You want to come after me? Fine. I'm an adult. I can handle your small-minded prejudice, but you sent your children to attack mine, and that crosses a line. Mrs. Morrison intervened. Perhaps we should discuss consequences. Yes, let's, Daniel agreed. I want these 3 suspended. I want a formal investigation into bullying patterns at this school. And I want assurance that if anything like this happens again, I'll be pressing charges for assault. Assault, one of the mothers screeched, for a schoolyard scuffle. For 3 older children attacking a 7-year-old. Yes, assault. Or would you prefer I handle this through civil courts? I'm sure the media would love a story about wealthy children ganging up on a little girl because of her father's social status. The threat landed. These people live for their reputations, their social standing. A public scandal would be devastating. After an hour of negotiation, the 3 students were suspended, their parents sufficiently chastened. Daniel carried Lily to the car, her arms wrapped around his neck. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know you said violence isn't the answer. Sometimes standing up for yourself is the answer, even when it's hard. I'm proud of you, baby. But next time, get a teacher. There wasn't time. They had me cornered. The image of his 7-year-old cornered by older kids made his hands shake with renewed anger. He called Clara from the car. I need a recommendation for a different school. What happened? He explained, hearing her sharp intake of breath. Bring her here, now. Clara. Now Daniel. 20 minutes later, they were in Clara's office. Sophie was there, having been picked up from school by Clara's assistant. The girl gasped when she saw Lily's face. Who did this? Sophie demanded with 7-year-old outrage. While the girls talked, Clara pulled Daniel aside. This is my fault. My association with you made you both targets. This is society's fault for teaching kids that someone's worth is determined by their bank account. Tom knows the headmaster at Preston Academy. It's where Sophie goes. They have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, and their diversity initiatives are genuine, not just PR. Preston Academy costs more than I make, and they have scholarships. Merit-based, not just need-based. Lily would qualify academically. Let me make the call. Daniel wanted to refuse his pride, bristling at more help. But Lily's swollen lip reminded him that pride was a luxury he couldn't afford when his daughter's safety was at stake. Make the call. Within an hour, they had an interview scheduled for the next day. That night, Daniel sat on Lily's bed, reading her favorite story while she held ice to her lip. Will I have to leave all my friends? Some of them, but Sophie goes to the new school. You'll make new friends. Better friends. Different friends, hopefully ones whose parents teach them kindness instead of cruelty. The boy who pushed me, his dad owns a bank. Owning a bank doesn't make you a good person. What makes someone a good person? Daniel thought about it. How they treat people who can't do anything for them. How they act when no one's watching, whether they choose to help or hurt when given the chance. Like when you saved Miss Clara. Like when you stood up for me today, even though you knew you might get hurt. Lily smiled despite her swollen lip. We're good people, aren't we, Daddy? We try to be sweetheart. That's all anyone can do. The Preston Academy interview went better than expected. The headmaster, Dr. Williams, was a tall black woman who'd worked her way up from public school teacher to educational reformer. She looked at Lily's bruised face with knowing eyes. I heard about the incident at your current school, she said directly. That wouldn't happen here. We have students from every economic background, and we work hard to ensure mutual respect. She interviewed Lily separately then, together with Daniel. By the end, she was smiling. Lily is delightful, smart, articulate, and clearly resilient. We'd be honored to have her full scholarship for academic merit. She can start Monday. Daniel felt tears threaten. Another door opening, another step up from the struggle they'd known. That afternoon, he threw himself into work with renewed determination. The Midwest Pilot Program needed to launch flawlessly, not just for his career, but to prove that someone like him belonged in these rooms, made these decisions, shaped these futures. Morrison appeared in his office at the end of the day. I'll consult on your pilot program. 3 months, then we evaluate. What changed your mind? Clara told me what happened to your daughter. The fact that you came back to work instead of declaring war on those families shows more restraint than I'd have managed. You're trying to change things the right way through success rather than revenge. I respect that. They worked late into the evening, Morrison's experience filling gaps in Daniel's knowledge. It was like being back in night school, but with the best teacher in the world. You remind me of myself, Morrison said suddenly. Not the credentials, but the hunger. I was first-generation college, worked my way through school. Everyone assumed I'd fail. But you didn't. No, but I also didn't help others like me rise. I was so focused on fitting in, I forgot where I came from. Don't make that mistake. Daniel thought about Sarah Chen, about the warehouse workers, about all the people grinding away in jobs that barely paid enough to survive. I won't forget. Friday brought the official launch of the Midwest pilot. Daniel flew to Chicago to oversee it personally, walking the warehouse floors, talking to workers, understanding the ground-level reality of his theoretical improvements. "You're the executive who helped James," one worker said, referring to the Detroit accident. "He says you saved his family. He's recovering. Walking again thanks to the therapy you arranged. You're different from the suits who usually show up." "I'm not different. I just remember what it's like to be where you are." The pilot launch was flawless. Routes that had taken 6 hours now took 4. Warehouse efficiency improved by 20% on day 1. Workers reported less strain, better organization, clearer communication. Daniel called Clara from his hotel room, exhausted but exhilarated. "It's working. I knew it would. You see systems differently because you've been inside them, not just above them." "Morrison helped. He's brilliant. He called me. Said you're the future of logistics if your ego doesn't get in the way." "My ego." Success can change people, Daniel. The money, the power, the validation. It's seductive. I've got Lily to keep me grounded. Good. Speaking of which, how's she settling into Preston? Loves it. She and Sophie have already started some sort of science club. I'm slightly terrified of what they might create. Clara laughed. Tom says the same thing. 2 brilliant girls with determination could be dangerous. Or world-changing. Probably both. Saturday morning, Daniel returned home to find Lily and Sophie in the kitchen with Mrs. Chen, all 3 covered in flour, making something that might have been cookies, or might have been abstract art. "Daddy, we're baking for the school fundraiser. Mrs. Chen is teaching us her secret recipe." "Secret recipe for what?" "Success cookies. Mrs. Chen says if you eat them while doing homework, you get smarter." Mrs. Chen winked at him over the girls' heads. "Is old family tradition. Also much sugar helps children focus, yes. The normalcy of it, the simple domestic joy grounded him after a week of corporate battles and strategic victories. This was what mattered. Lily laughing, safe, surrounded by people who cared about her. Tom arrived to pick up Sophie, staying for coffee while the girls played. Clara tells me the pilot program exceeded projections. First week's success doesn't mean long-term viability. No, but it means you were right to try. That's half of innovation, being willing to risk being wrong. Speaking of risk, some of the board members are already grumbling about the expansion costs. They'll always grumble. It's what boards do. The trick is showing them returns before their grumbling becomes action. Any advice? Don't just show them numbers, show them stories. The warehouse worker whose job got easier. The driver who gets home to his family 2 hours earlier. The client who received their shipment ahead of schedule. Make it human. Daniel thought about that approach, how different it was from traditional corporate presentations. But then he'd never been traditional. Sunday brought unexpected visitors. The doorbell rang while Daniel was helping Lily with a school project about butterflies. He opened it to find James, the Detroit worker who'd been critically injured, standing with his wife and daughter. "James, you're walking." "Thanks to you," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "The doctor said the quick treatment you arranged made the difference. I wanted to thank you in person." "You didn't have to eat." "Yes, I did. You didn't just save my job or cover my medical bills. You gave me dignity through the worst moment of my life. That's rare, Mr. Hayes." They invited them in the apartment, suddenly feeling too small for so many people. But Lily immediately took James's daughter to see her butterfly project, and the adults found space around the kitchen table. "I heard about your promotion," James said. "Director of Operations, that's incredible." "It's just a title." "No, it's not. It's someone like us in a position to make real change, to ensure what happened to me doesn't happen to others." James's wife added, "The safety improvements you implemented, everyone at the Detroit facility talks about them. Morale is the highest it's been in years." They talked for hours about work and family struggle and hope. When they finally left, James shook Daniel's hand with the grip of someone who'd fought their way back from the edge. "Don't let them change you," he said quietly. "The corporate world will try to make you like them. Stay like us." That evening, after Lily was asleep, Daniel stood on his small balcony looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Board meeting Tuesday. They want a full report on the pilot program and projection for national rollout. Be ready for resistance. He texted back, I'm always ready for resistance. It's acceptance I'm still learning to handle. Her response was immediate. That's what makes you valuable. Never get comfortable with success. Monday flew by in preparation for the board meeting. Morrison worked with him on the presentation, refining arguments, anticipating objections. Sarah Chen provided ground-level data that supported every claim. You're going to war, Morrison observed.
The old guard won't appreciate being shown up by someone they see as an upstart. Then they should have done their jobs better. Careful. Arrogance is a short step from confidence. It's not arrogance if you can back it up, Morrison smiled. Now you sound like me 40 years ago. Just remember, burning bridges might feel good, but sometimes you need those bridges later. Tuesday morning, Daniel dressed in his best suit, the one that still felt like a costume despite weeks of wearing it. Lily noticed his nervousness. Are you scared, Daddy? A little? Remember what you told me about the bullies. They're mean because they're scared of you being good at things. When did you get so wise? Mrs. Chen says wisdom comes from suffering and surviving. We've done both right. He hugged her tightly. Yeah, baby, we have. The boardroom was full 12 members plus Clara, all watching as Daniel set up his presentation. He noticed several new faces. Apparently word had spread that this would be contentious. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel began clicking to his first slide. 6 weeks ago, you took a chance on an unconventional hire. Today, I'm here to show you why that was the best decision you've made in years. He walked them through the pilot program's success, but more than numbers, he showed them people. The warehouse worker whose productivity increased because the new system reduced physical strain. The driver who'd written a thank you letter because he could now attend his daughter's soccer games. The client who'd increased their orders based on improved reliability. This isn't just about efficiency, Daniel said. It's about sustainability, not environmental human. Our competitors are automating removing people from the equation. We're empowering people, making them more effective, more valued. Which company would you rather work for? Which company would you rather invest in? The costs. One board member began, are offset by reduced turnover, improved safety compliance, and increased client satisfaction. The Detroit incident cost us $8 million in settlements and repairs. Preventing one such incident pays for the entire program. You're asking us to restructure our entire operation based on 1 week of data. Another member challenged. I'm asking you to choose between leading the industry or following it. Morrison Logistics Consulting agrees this is the future. He saw surprise on several faces. Morrison's firm was legendary. His endorsement carried enormous weight. You have Morrison's backing, the CFO asked. I have Morrison himself. He's consulting on the rollout. The room shifted, resistance weakening. Daniel pressed his advantage. Every day we delay, our competitors gain ground. But more importantly, every day we delay, our workers suffer with inefficient systems. Our drivers waste time on poor routes. Our clients receive subpar service. This isn't just about profit. It's about people. The vote was closer than he'd hoped, but decisive enough approval for national rollout over 18 months with quarterly evaluations. After the meeting, Clara found him in his office staring out at the city. You did it. We did it. Without your support. Without your vision, there would have been nothing to support. She moved to stand beside him at the window. You've changed more in 2 months than this company changed in the previous 2 years. Change is expensive. Stagnation is more expensive. We just don't see the bill until it's too late. His phone rang. The school. Mr. Hayes, Lily's fine, but there's someone here claiming to be her grandmother. We have no record of... Daniel's blood went cold. Do not let her leave with that woman. I'm on my way. He ran from the office, Clara calling after him. The drive to Preston Academy was a blur of racing thoughts. Margaret's mother, Patricia, who'd disappeared when Margaret got sick, who'd said she couldn't handle watching her daughter die, who'd left them to face the darkness alone. At the school, he found Patricia in the main office, looking older, grayer, but still carrying the same entitled bearing that had always made Margaret tense. Daniel, you look...
prosperous. What are you doing here, Patricia? I heard about your success, your new position. I thought it was time to reconnect with my granddaughter. You thought wrong. You abandoned her when she needed you most. I was grieving. We were all grieving. The difference is Lily and I grieved together while you ran away. Patricia's face hardened. I have rights. Grandparental rights. I've consulted a lawyer. You have nothing. You made your choice when Margaret was dying, and you couldn't be bothered to help with treatments with Lily with anything. I have money now, resources. I could provide things. I provide everything Lily needs. In that tiny apartment, at that public school. Oh, wait, you've moved her. On scholarship, I heard. Still taking charity. Daniel felt the old shame try to rise, but it couldn't find purchase anymore. There's no shame in accepting help to build something better. There's only shame in having the ability to help and choosing not to. Dr. Williams appeared, having been alerted to the situation. Mr. Hayes, is there a problem? This woman is not authorized to have contact with my daughter. She's not on any approved list. Then she needs to leave. Shall I call security? Patricia gathered her purse, but her eyes were calculating. This isn't over. I have rights, and now I have the means to pursue them. That little girl deserves better than a father who loves her, who sacrificed everything for her, who built a new life from nothing to give her opportunities. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. You know nothing about what she deserves because you weren't there to learn. Leave now and don't come back. After Patricia left, Daniel sat in Dr. Williams's office shaking with rage and fear. She can't take Lily, can she? Abandonment is hard to overcome in court, Dr. Williams assured him. Document everything. When she left, why, what support she failed to provide. Courts favor stability for children, and you've clearly provided that. Daniel called Clara from the parking lot, explaining the situation. I'll have our legal team on it immediately, she said. Patricia won't get near Lily. She has money. She could make this expensive. You have something better, you have us. The company's legal resources are at your disposal. This is a family matter, and you're family now. The word landed heavy with meaning. Family. Not by blood, but by choice, by loyalty, by showing up when it mattered. That evening, Daniel sat with Lily at their kitchen table, trying to find the right words to explain why the grandmother she barely remembered had suddenly appeared. The legal team Clara promised was already working, but the emotional complexity couldn't be handled by lawyers. Do you remember Grandma Patricia? He asked gently. Lily scrunched her face in concentration. The lady who smelled like flowers and made Mommy sad. Even at 5, Lily had been perceptive. Yeah, that's her. She came to your school today. Why? I think she's lonely. Sometimes when people realize they made mistakes, they try to fix them. Did she make a mistake? Daniel chose his words carefully. When Mommy got sick, Grandma Patricia was scared. Instead of staying to help us, she left. That was her mistake. But we were scared too, and we stayed. Exactly. That's what family does. They stay even when it's hard. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing with the deep thought that always reminded him of Margaret. I don't want to see her. You don't have to. I'll make sure of that. Will she try to take me away? The fear in her voice broke his heart. Never. You're staying right here with me. Clara's helping us make sure of that. Clara's nice. She doesn't make you sad like Grandma Patricia made Mommy sad. The observation was innocent but loaded with meaning Daniel wasn't ready to examine. Instead, he pulled Lily into a hug, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent, grounding himself in the reality of their life together. The next morning brought a formal letter from Patricia's attorney. She was seeking visitation rights claiming grandparental alienation. The language was aggressive, designed to intimidate. But Daniel had faced eviction notices, medical bills that might as well have been death sentences, and the casual cruelty of a society that measured worth in dollars. A legal threat from someone who'd chosen absence over presence didn't even make his top 10 fears. Clara's legal team responded within hours. The lead attorney, Michelle Barnes, was a small woman with the demeanor of a friendly librarian and the legal instincts of a shark. She has almost no case, Michelle explained in Daniel's office. Abandonment during a child's traumatic experience, no financial support provided, no attempt at contact for 2 years. Judges don't look kindly on that. But she has money now.
She can drag this out. She can try. But I've handled cases for Clara before. We don't lose and we don't back down. Patricia picked the wrong fight. The legal battle became background noise to Daniel's daily life. He threw himself into the national rollout, traveling to facilities across the country, implementing changes that improved both efficiency and worker satisfaction. Each success felt like a small victory against everyone who'd said he didn't belong. Morrison became a constant presence, their relationship evolving from teacher-student to something approaching partnership. Over late-night strategy sessions, the older man shared stories of his own rise, the prejudices he'd faced as one of the few black executives in logistics 40 years ago. "They'll never fully accept you," Morrison said one evening as they reviewed expansion plans. "You'll always be the outsider who got lucky. The question is whether you let that define you or drive you." "What did you choose?" "For too long, I chose to let it define me. I became what they expected: brilliant but safe, innovative but not revolutionary. Don't make my mistakes." "What changed?" "Retirement. I realized I'd spent 40 years being palatable instead of powerful. You're starting with power. Don't waste it trying to fit in." The wisdom resonated as Daniel faced increasing resistance from old guard executives who resented his rapid rise. They whispered about favoritism, about Clara's pet project, about the inevitable failure of someone so far out of his depth. But the numbers didn't lie. Every region that implemented Daniel's systems showed improvement. Worker retention increased. Accident rates decreased. Clients signed longer contracts citing reliability and ethical practices as deciding factors. 3 weeks into the legal proceedings, Patricia made her first real move. She leaked the story to a business journalist known for exposing corporate scandals. The headline was brutal: "Donovan Tech executive denies child access to grandmother while living in poverty." The article was a masterclass in manipulation, painting Daniel as an ungrateful son-in-law who'd alienated Patricia after Margaret's death, keeping Lily from her only living grandmother out of spite. It mentioned his rapid promotion implying impropriety and questioned whether someone who'd been unemployed so recently could provide stable care for a child. Daniel read it in his office, each word a calculated wound. His phone exploded with calls, reporters wanting statements, colleagues offering support or seeking gossip. But the call that mattered came from Lily's school. "Mr. Hayes, we've had some reporters asking about Lily. We haven't said anything, but I wanted you to be aware." His worst nightmare, Lily being dragged into public scrutiny because of his success. He left immediately, picking her up early, finding her in art class painting butterflies with Sophie. "Daddy? Is it time already?" "Early day, sweetheart. We're going on an adventure." He took both girls with Clara's permission to the museum, keeping them away from screens and questions. While they explored dinosaur exhibits, he fielded calls, crafted responses, tried to shield his daughter from the storm Patricia had created. Clara met them at the museum cafe, having canceled her afternoon meetings. "The board is concerned why," she said quietly, while the girls debated which dinosaur would win in a fight. "About the article, about the optics. A custody battle, implications of impropriety in your hiring, it's making them nervous." "Are you asking me to resign?" "I'm asking you to fight back. Patricia wants to paint you as unfit. Show them what fitness looks like." That evening, Daniel did something he'd never done before he went on the offensive. With Michelle Barnes's help, he released a statement detailing Patricia's abandonment, including documentation of Margaret's medical bills that Patricia had refused to help with despite having resources at the time. But more powerfully, he included testimonials from Mrs. Chen, from Lily's teachers, from James, and other workers whose lives he'd improved. The narrative shifted from executive denies grandmother access to single father overcomes abandonment to build better life for daughter. Sarah Chen, now running logistics coordination with exceptional skill, organized something unexpected. A social media campaign from warehouse workers nationwide sharing stories of how Daniel's reforms had improved their lives. The hashtag #LeadershipThatCares trended for 3 days. Patricia's next move was more desperate. She filed for emergency custody, claiming Daniel's work schedule left Lily unsupervised and that his recent prominence put her in danger. The court date was set for the following Monday. Daniel barely slept that weekend, preparing with Michelle, gathering documents, character witnesses.
Clara insisted on testifying, as did Tom Morrison, even Dr. Williams from Preston Academy. You don't have to do this, Daniel told them at the preparation meeting. Yes, we do, Tom said simply. This is what family does, they show up. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, pathetic fallacy at its finest. Daniel dressed Lily in her best outfit, the one she'd worn to Sophie's birthday party, trying to project stability and care. Why do I have to go to court? Lily asked. The judge needs to see that you're happy and healthy. You might have to answer some questions. Will Grandma Patricia be there? Yes. I still don't want to live with her. You won't. I promise. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and mahogany, designed to inspire respect or fear, depending on which side of justice you stood. Patricia was already there, dressed in expensive black that suggested mourning, as if she were the victim. Daniel, she said, attempting warmth, we don't have to do this. Just give me weekends with Lily, and I'll drop everything. You had weekends. You had years of weekends. You chose not to use them. I was grieving. So was she. A 5-year-old girl who'd lost her mother, and you couldn't be bothered to help her through it because it was too hard for you. The judge entered before Patricia could respond. Judge Catherine Murphy, known for favoring children's welfare over adult desires. Michelle had said she was their best hope for a quick resolution. Patricia's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a grandmother desperate to reconnect, blocked by a vindictive son-in-law who'd used his newfound power to deny family bonds. They emphasized Daniel's long work hours, his recent hiring suggesting instability, the danger of corporate life for a child. Then Michelle stood and methodically destroyed every argument. She presented evidence of Patricia's abandonment emails where she'd explicitly stated she couldn't handle Margaret's illness bank records showing she'd had resources, but chose not to help witness statements from neighbors who'd watched Daniel struggle alone. Your Honor, Michelle said, Ms. Patricia Richmond isn't seeking custody because she loves her granddaughter. She's seeking it because her son-in-law's success has made Lily valuable. Where was this concern when Mr. Hayes was working 3 jobs to pay medical bills? Where was this love when a 5-year-old was crying for her mother? The witnesses testified one by one. Mrs. Chen spoke about watching Daniel skip meals so Lily could eat studying for his degree by nightlight so as not to wake her. Never complaining, despite exhaustion, that would have broken most people. Clara testified about Daniel's character, how he'd saved her life without knowing who she was, how he'd consistently chosen integrity over easy advancement. Morrison, the legendary logistics expert, stated simply, I've worked with hundreds of executives. Daniel Hayes is the only one I'd trust with my own grandchildren. Then came the moment Daniel had dreaded. Lily was called to judges' chambers for a private conversation. She walked in holding her butterfly painting from art class, small but brave. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. When she emerged, she ran straight to Daniel, wrapping her arms around his neck. I told her the truth, she whispered, that you're the best daddy and I never want to leave you. Judge Murphy returned her expression unreadable. I've reviewed the evidence and spoken with the child. My decision is clear. Ms. Richmond's petition is denied. Full custody remains with Mr. Hayes with no mandated visitation for Ms. Richmond. She continued, Ms. Richmond abandonment has consequences. You cannot disappear during the hard times and return for the good ones. Mr. Hayes has proven himself a devoted father under extraordinary circumstances. Lily is thriving in his care, and I will not disrupt that stability for someone who chose absence when presence mattered most. Patricia's lawyer tried to object, mentioning appeal options, but Patricia stopped him. She looked at Daniel, then at Lily, and for the first time he saw genuine regret in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said quietly, then left without another word. The relief was overwhelming. Daniel's knees nearly buckled, but Lily held him up, and their roles reversed for a moment. Outside the courthouse, their assembled support system waited. The celebration was quiet but profound lunch at a small restaurant where Lily could be a kid, not evidence in a case. You did it, Clara said, raising her juice glass in a toast. You protected what matters most. We did it, Daniel corrected. All of us. The next few weeks brought unexpected peace. Patricia didn't appeal, instead sending a letter saying she'd established a college fund for Lily. No strings attached, perhaps her way of making amends. The media moved on to other scandals.
Work continued its steady rhythm of challenges and victories. The national rollout exceeded projections. 6 months in Donovan Technologies was being studied by business schools as a model for ethical modernization. Daniel was invited to speak at conferences sharing his story of rising from warehouse to executive suite, emphasizing that success shouldn't require losing your humanity. One evening he was working late when Clara appeared in his doorway. "The board wants to promote you again. It's been 6 months. 6 months of unprecedented growth. They want you as Chief Operations Officer. You'd be my direct report, second in command of operations nationwide." Daniel set down his pen. "Clara, I'm grateful, but you're worried about moving too fast, about becoming something you're not. Morrison warned me about losing myself in success." "Then don't lose yourself. Take the position and reshape it. Show them that leadership doesn't require sacrificing family, that power doesn't mean stepping on others to rise." "What about the people who already think I'm your favorite?" "Let them think it. Meanwhile, you'll be improving their work lives, whether they appreciate it or not." Daniel thought about Lily, about the life they'd built, about the future, stretching before them, with possibilities he'd never dared imagine. "Can I have the weekend to decide?" "Of course. But Daniel, don't decide based on fear. You've earned this." That weekend, he took Lily camping, just the two of them in a tent by a lake. No electronics, no distractions. They fished badly burned marshmallows and talked about everything and nothing. "Daddy, are you happy?" Lily asked as they watched stars appear in the darkening sky. "What makes you ask that? You look worried sometimes, even when good things happen." "I guess I'm still getting used to good things lasting." "Maybe good things last when you take care of them. Like you take care of me, and Clara takes care of you, and Mrs. Chen takes care of all of us." "When did you get so wise?" "Tuesday. We learned about ecosystems. Everything's connected, and when one part gets stronger, it helps all the other parts." Daniel pulled her close, this remarkable child who'd survived loss and poverty and emerged with her kindness intact. "So you think I should take the promotion?" "I think you should do what makes you happy, but also Sophie says her mom really needs someone she can trust, and she trusts you." Monday morning, Daniel accepted the COO position. The announcement rippled through the company, the warehouse worker who'd become second in command in less than a year. Some celebrated, others seethed, but everyone paid attention. His first act as COO was to establish a mentorship program pairing executives with entry-level employees. His second was to mandate that all C-suite members spend 1 day per quarter working frontline positions. If they were going to make decisions affecting workers, they needed to understand the work. The pushback was immediate and fierce. Several executives threatened to quit. Daniel's response was simple: doors that way. 2 quit. He replaced them with internal promotions, people who'd proven themselves through merit rather than connections. The culture shift was seismic. Meanwhile, Lily flourished at Preston Academy. She and Sophie became inseparable, their science projects growing increasingly ambitious. Their butterfly study evolved into a presentation on metamorphosis that won the state science fair. Watching her on stage, confident and brilliant, Daniel saw Margaret's intelligence combined with a resilience born from their journey together. One evening, 6 months into his COO role, Daniel stood on stage at the annual shareholders meeting presenting the year's results. Revenue up 18%. Worker satisfaction at an all-time high. Industry publications calling Donovan Technologies the company that cares. A year ago, he said to the assembled shareholders, "I was unemployed, a single father counting pennies for bus fare. Today I stand before you as your Chief Operations Officer. This isn't just my success story. It's proof that when we invest in people, when we value character over credentials, when we choose humanity over pure profit, everyone wins." The applause was thunderous, but what mattered was Lily's voice from the audience. "That's my dad." After the meeting, as they walked to the car, Lily slipped her hand into his. "Remember when we used to walk to the bus stop and you'd tell me stories about better days coming?" "I remember. The real days are better than the stories." "Yeah, baby, they are." "So what do we dream about now?" Daniel thought about it as they drove home to their new house. Nothing mansion-like, but solid safe, with a yard where Lily could play and a kitchen where they could cook real dinners together. He thought about Clara's increasing reliance on him, not just professionally, but personally, the way she sought his opinion on things beyond business.
He thought about Morrison's talk of retirement, of passing torches of legacy beyond himself. We dream about helping other people get their better days, well, he finally said. Like you helped the workers. Like that, but bigger. Maybe starting a foundation for single parents going to school, or programs for kids who lost parents, or making sure companies everywhere treat people fairly. Can we do all that? Together we can do anything. That night after Lily was asleep, Daniel stood in his home office, still strange to have a home office looking at the photo from the night before Margaret died. She was smiling despite the pain holding Lily. Looking at the camera with such trust that he'd figure it out that he'd take care of their daughter. I did it, Maggie, he whispered. Not the way we planned, but I did it. His phone buzzed. Clara, Charles, tomorrow's board meeting might get contentious. Patterson Industries is making a hostile takeover attempt. We need to strategize. Daniel smiled, remembering when his biggest worry was making rent. Now he was defending companies from takeovers, reshaping industries, building futures for thousands of workers. He texted back, I'll be ready. I'm good at fighting battles that matter. Her response was immediate, that's why I need you. The next morning, Daniel arrived early, finding Morrison already in the conference room with Clara studying financial projections. Patterson's offering 40% above market value, Morrison said without preamble. The board will be tempted. They're asset strippers, Daniel replied. They'll gut the company, fire half the workforce, and destroy everything we've built. The board cares about shareholder value, Clara said, but her tone suggested she shared his concern. Then we show them that our value isn't just in assets. It's in our people, our reputation, our future growth. They spent 3 hours preparing, building a defense that went beyond numbers to vision, legacy, and the rare thing they'd created, a profitable company with a conscience. The board meeting was tense. Several members, including some Daniel had thought were allies, seemed swayed by Patterson's offer. The discussion went in circles until Daniel stood. May I share something? The room quieted. 18 months ago, I stood at an intersection with a choice. Save a stranger or save my interview. I chose the stranger because that's who I am. But more importantly, that's who we are as a company now. We choose people over profit margins. We choose long-term sustainability over short-term gains. Patterson will destroy that. They'll turn us into another soulless corporation that sees workers as expenses rather than assets. He looked at each board member in turn. You can take their money and watch everything we've built crumble. Or you can bet on us, on the team that turned this company from good to great by remembering that business is ultimately about human beings serving human needs. Pretty words, Yicht, one member said, but Patterson's offer is real money. So is ours. Clara stood pulling up a projection. Daniel and his team have developed a 5-year plan that will double our value while maintaining our principles. Show them. Daniel presented the expansion strategy. International markets, vertical integration technology investments that would streamline without eliminating jobs. It was ambitious but achievable, based on the same principles that had worked domestically. This is risky, the CFO noted. Everything worthwhile is risky, Daniel replied. Playing it safe is how companies die slowly instead of quickly. The vote was called. One by one, board members voiced their positions. It came down to a single vote. Martha Stewart, the founding member who'd supported Daniel from the beginning. She was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. I invested in Clara's vision 20 years ago because she promised to build something different. Daniel represents that difference. I vote against the takeover. Patterson's attempt failed, but the battle had revealed vulnerabilities. Some board members were clearly more interested in personal profit than company principles. Clara and Daniel would need to be vigilant. That evening, exhausted from the corporate warfare, Daniel picked up Lily from Sophie's house. The girls were in the backyard catching fireflies in jars, their laughter bright in the summer dusk. How was your day? Tom asked, offering Daniel a beer. Saved the company from hostile takeover. You taught freshmen about Shakespeare. I think you had the harder job. They watched their daughters play two men who'd found unexpected friendship through their children's bond. Clara's lucky to have you, Tom said suddenly. Not just as COO, as someone who reminds her why she started all this. She saved me first, the job, the opportunity. No, you saved each other. She pulled you up economically. You pulled her back to her principles. That's rare, that kind of balance. That night, putting Lily to bed, she asked, "Are we safe now, Daddy?" Really safe? Daniel thought about the question seriously. They had money in the bank, a house they owned, health insurance, education funds, but more than that, they had community. Clara and Sophie, Mrs. Chen, the network of people who'd supported them through the climb. Yeah, sweetheart, we're safe. Good, because I want to be a scientist when I grow up, and Sophie says college is expensive. We'll figure it out, we always do. Together. Always together. As Lily slept, Daniel returned to his office working on the international expansion plans. His phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, assuming spam, but something made him open it. Daniel, this is Patricia. I wanted you to know I've been following your success. I was wrong about everything. Margaret would be so proud. Take care of my granddaughter. Maybe someday when she's older, if she wants to know about her mother's childhood, we could talk. No pressure, no courts. Just an old woman hoping for eventual forgiveness. P. Daniel stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, maybe someday. When Lily's ready, thank you for the college fund. He returned to his work, but his mind wandered to how much had changed. From that desperate morning running across a bridge to save a stranger to this night, planning international corporate strategy from his home office while his daughter slept safely upstairs. The computer chimed with an email from Clara. Excellent work today. We make a good team. He replied, the best team, ready for whatever comes next. Her response was immediate. With you as COO, I'm ready for anything. Daniel smiled, thinking about Morrison's words about not just managing but leading, not just succeeding, but transforming. He thought about Lily's butterfly project, about metamorphosis, about becoming something beautiful through struggle. His phone buzzed once more. A photo from Mrs. Hunt. Chen of a newspaper clipping, local boy makes good from warehouse to C-suite in 18 months. Her message, told you good things happen, frame this for Lily. He would frame it not as an ending, but as a milestone. There was still so much work to do, the international expansion, the mentorship program ensuring the company's values survived its growth. But tonight, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Through the window, city lights twinkled like stars he could finally reach. Somewhere out there were other single parents struggling with impossible choices, other workers grinding through systems that didn't value them, other people one opportunity away from transformation. Daniel returned to his computer, opening a new document titled The Hayes Foundation, a proposal. If success meant anything, it meant extending the ladder down to others still climbing. His phone showed one final message, this one from Lily's tablet, probably sent when she was supposed to be sleeping. Daddy, I love you to the moon and back. He typed back, to the stars and beyond, baby, to the stars and beyond. The house was quiet, except for the hum of his computer and the distant sound of the city that no longer felt like an enemy, but like a realm of possibility. Daniel Hayes, former warehouse worker, single father, accidental executive, sat in his home office planning futures, his daughters, his companies, and maybe just maybe his own. He thought about that morning that had changed everything about the choice that hadn't felt like a choice at all. Sometimes losing one door really was the only way to find the one you were meant to walk through. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, that door led not just to success, but to significance. The clock showed midnight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, it always did. But tonight, Daniel Hayes was exactly where he needed to be, home safe with his daughter sleeping peacefully upstairs, and a future bright with possibilities stretching out before them. He saved his work, turned off the lights, and headed to bed. Tomorrow he'd continue building something that mattered. Tonight, he'd simply be grateful for how far they'd come. The metamorphosis was complete, but the flight was just beginning.